let me get started. I want to say a couple quick things. The one thing that's on my mind that's I'm most interested is there were about 10 homeworks submitted early. Like technically, I don't think of it as late if you get it to me anytime on the due day up to midnight. And when people need extensions, I listen. I'm open-minded about it. But one really wants to stay on time. But, really, as it is right here, we have 16, 17, we have 15 students, which means 10 people already submitted the homework. And, they looked really good. So while I have so many things that to talk to you guys about and new artistic technology to go over today, I do want to say that it was pretty satisfying seeing what the first round of homework looks like so early. And I made them available so we could take a peek at them later this morning, which is nice. Now, I have news for everybody here. Some of you guys have been waiting for computers, trying to be very, very patient. Hey, Naftali, are you there? Can you hear me? Because I have some good news for you. You've been diligent trying to get this to happen. And I have hopefully good news. Let me not exaggerate. Let me just open up my screen share. And we just try to, I'm trying to keep, I'm still not used to keeping an eye on the chat. And now sometimes there are people stuck in some kind of waiting room feature that just kicked in recently. All right, looks like we're on top of it. I'm going to screen share right now just to get us off the ground. Let me go right to the handout. So look, some of you guys look very, very tired. Can't really blame you. It's Friday. I just drink a lot of coffee and I start at 6 in the morning, so I'm pumped. But right after this class, I'm probably going to pass out. You stay alert no matter what, right? We just got this off the ground, in my opinion, last week. I could see we got some early momentum despite a lot of obstacles. But I do want to go over some stuff. So first off, school's closed next Friday. I think it's a holiday, a religious holiday. But I checked the calendar a bunch of times. So do you guys already know that? Can you give me a thumbs up if you already knew that? It kind of, yeah, you already knew that, Gabriel? That's comforting, because sometimes I'm like, what? Where did that holiday come from? All right, so that means we've got a 2-week gap. So I am giving another homework today. We will, of course, talk about that at the end of the day after we learn the new material. But it also gives people who've been waiting for computers a chance to catch up. So I'm going to be addressing that particular issue because I got a little bit of news yesterday afternoon and a little bit more early this morning that I want to share with you. Okay. So first off, yes, the Class 2 assignment, there was none on Class 1, is due today at midnight. Those of you who handed in already will get to participate in this little show I intend to do later of that work. I just want to remind you that I do take attendance in this class. I take it at 9, or sometimes I'll wait till 5 after 9, right? If people are really needing to take this class in some other fashion because of personal issues or job issues, you need to talk to me about it. And I'll do my best to be accommodating, right? I am now taking attendance, which I do as a screenshot. Folks, while I'm on that subject, those of you who always leave your camera off, I got to be honest, it bothers me. It really does. It bothers me. In school, you wouldn't come and wear a mask. Well, this kind of mask, but not the old school mask. Turn your cameras on. And if it's because, you've got some personal reason where you want to be invisible, I'm sorry, that's just not school. So send me an email if you've got some reason why you insist on having your camera on. So yes, I'm talking to you, Harold. I'm talking to you, Kayla. I'm talking to Nassim, Aurelia, Wyoming, Callista, all of you, right? Now, I got to say something else. I don't mean that to be like this. I need the transaction. This is a class. Otherwise, I'd have you read a book. Just read the book. But it is not a book. Here's the other thing, guys. Right now, if you're not using your real name, or not the name the school has, right? Like you might have a name you prefer, which I do respect. Honestly, I do. But I can't track it. So I can't give you, I got someone who sent me their homework with a pseudonym. You know, it's obviously not their name. It's the name they want to use. I have no idea who they are, so they're not going to get credit for it. I can't even say, hey, you, because I don't know who it was. So if you send me a homework without the name that BMCC uses, send it to me again. Tell me what happened. Now, Nassim, I'd really like you to add your last name, right? If right now I'm looking at someone that doesn't have any name and I'm only just seeing the top of your head, by the way. Oh, you're on a cell phone, right? I mean, it might be harder to add your name on a cell phone than it does on the computer. So I'll be flexible, but if you're on your phone right now and your name's not showing up because of that, can you get to the chat feature? Now, I don't even know how to contact this person because I'm not getting any response. So look, if you're, some of your names I don't recognize, right? They're not on the roster, right? So please change your name to the name that the school has. Make sure I can see your name. Don't improvise, no nicknames. Naftali, I've gotten to know you, so I guess I'm not going to torture you about it. But first and last name, please. Folks, I want to drop this stuff. Some of you either cannot hear me because I'm getting no response from people who need to respond. All the people whose cameras are still off. Guys, you're absent. Do you know that? As far as I'm concerned, I can't see.
The theme says that he'll turn his camera back on. He just has people in the background.
Okay, got it. Oh, by the way, I don't mind seeing your brother pass by or your cat or whatever. I mean, you know, if they're dressed. Folks, I don't mean to be a hard line, but I have students who are faking it. You know, they're open up the computer and
Callista doesn't have a camera.
okay, good reason. Callista, off the hook, don't have a camera. So chat, Tiffany will keep me posted. She's helping me with a number of things, including that light, the chat. But you know, it's an epidemic, another epidemic of students trying to be marked in by opening up their computer and going back to bed. You know, with teachers who are not asking the camera to be on. I'm asking for the camera to be on. If you don't have it, you let us know. Tiffany will keep me posted. The rest of you, you got to have a reason, folks. I'm not marking you present if I can't see it. All right, I'm tired because I'm starting to sound like, you know, the bad guy, which I'm not. I'm here to share information. You just got to work with me. I need your names on, your real names on. I need your cameras on unless there's a good reason, and you got to share that reason. About the mics, I know some of us are sharing, like, you know, studios, you know, one room places, and people are noisy. I had a student taking a class, and her family was not nice enough to turn off the TV. They were playing it so loud, she could hardly ask a question. I'm mad at her family, not at her. So you turn the mics on and off as you need, okay? So look, when you look at yourself, do you see your first and last name? If I don't see your name, so I'm talking to one of you right now, right? You're not marked present. That's the same as sending me your homework with the last name Smith when that's not your last name. Give me a second, please. I'm resorting to individual texting. So I really don't. Hey, Tiffany, if you notice someone doesn't have their name or they're not responding, we have evidence that nobody's home. Could you chat them individually? Do you have the ability to do that on your end? Great. So if you could just chat them, tell them the teacher thinks you're out, man, you got to respond, wake up, whatever, you know, try to, if you don't mind. Wei Ming, it would be helpful if you turned your name on. You notice how everyone else has their name on? Can I ask you something? Did you send me a homework by a different name?
No.
No, okay, then you forget that one. Don't worry about it. I'm trying to figure out who the mystery person is that sent me a homework by a pseudonym. Very odd. All right, guys, let me drop it. Thank you all for joining me as best you can. I'm going to assume that people who are still not showing me have really good reasons for now. All right, let me get back to it. Okay, enough of that. Listen, I want to, so again, remember, we're closed next Friday. I'll see you in 2 weeks on the 25th. So you have 2 weeks to do the next homework. It's no larger than the last one. I've been managing to keep up with it fairly well. You know, by the way, they're usually online later the same day. You know, I'm probably not going to keep announcing them, but you should know that I do my best to get them same day. If they're not on the same day, it just means there was a technical glitch at YouTube or at Zoom or on my end. But they're pretty helpful.
Professor?
Yes. Yes. Hi. Hi, Marilia.
I have a problem.
What is that? What's the problem?
So I'm trying to update my computer to Windows 10,
Okay.
but I'm not sure if you can see it. This is what it tells me.
No, I can't see. Do you know how to take a screenshot? Marilia?
Yeah, I know how to take a screenshot.
I would take a screenshot, and you know, something I haven't tried, but through the chat, there's a file button you could click, and you could share anything in the chat. So if you want to send us the screenshot.
Okay, I guess I'll just take a picture of that.
Exactly, because I can't see it. By the way, listen, I have to say, you guys have been helpful because I'm a Mac expert largely, and definitely not a Windows expert. Tiffany knows more than I do about Windows, and I know some of you are probably experts, so maybe we could help Marilia out when we get a look at what her issue is. But right now, I'm going to have to move forward as best as possible. Okay. Strange semester, but I promise I have a lot of content for you today. Fun, cool animation stuff. But we do have to get through some more techie stuff. Okay. You know, I want to say something about this whole working at home business. You know, I don't have the list in front of me, but I did have, you know, a few people who needed proper computers for this class, and now it's week 3, and you know, they would have every right to be dejected if they were. So I've been really actively talking to people in power to see what's up. And finally, I got news yesterday that the computers look like they're going to be available quite likely next week, no sooner than Monday. This is Friday. That's not a surprise. This is what I was told yesterday. So guys, listen, if you've been waiting for a computer, right, stay alert, right? You know, listen, I'm not going to harass anybody for taking my class lying down, but I got to be honest, I cannot give you a job referral. I cannot give you a referral for anything. You know, I had one guy come to my class without his shirt on, you know, and I'm just like, you know what? You're not even interested in success. But listen, maybe some people are passing out because they don't have the right equipment. I don't know. But here's the deal. I've been told that people who need computers have to check their email every day right now, because the computers are arriving. And they haven't given you instructions on when they're arriving and when to pick them up. So you have to check every day. Here's the main reason. So I got to admit, if anyone needs to hear this and isn't paying attention, I'm not going to repeat it. You know, you're the one with unusual circumstance. So you're the one who has to reach higher. There's going to be a 2-day window each week where they're going to allow people come in and get those. Thing is, you can't afford to wait any longer. You really can't. So that means if they come next week and you need a computer, you have to find a way to be available, rain or shine. I'm not the one who's going to send the instructions. But what I did do was jump the line. I took the 5 names of the people who asked for them in this group, and I got them to the head of the department. He verified he had your names as of yesterday. So you're in front of that line. So if that actually comes through on Monday, you're going to be getting an email at any time. You know, if it doesn't come through, I apologize on the school's behalf, but that's what I was told. Your name, they got your name even though you didn't fill anything out. So I'm sure glad I took my own list, right? Let me know, please. If you get it, I need to celebrate. I'm gonna have a beer in your name because this has been a wipeout. All right, enough said about that. I hope everybody's listening. If you don't check your email and you miss the 2-day window, that's that. Game over, right? So that's the best I can do. If you did not request the computer before, what were you waiting for? It's late now. This is week 3. But look, I'm not going to drop the ball. If one of you suddenly realized, oh my God, I was wrong, I should have requested that computer, even though I said it 100 times week 1 and 100 times week 2, which really sucks if you ignored it. I got to be blunt. You know, life is intense, so there may be reasons why you're missing beats. Life is intense. Send me an email during class, after class, you know. But I want it as an email, to be honest, because I need some show that you're serious, you know, honestly. So the email is what's going to take. And I will send a last-minute message to the head of the department that you would like one also, and hope that it's not too late, because everyone else sent in their request 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Enough said about that, right? I have to move forward. All right. So yeah, good news for anyone waiting for a computer. I really respect you, really. I hope you go at it with a frenzy when that computer arrives. Now, I got to say one more thing to that crowd, everyone else, and thank you for being patient. I'm not going to count on this, but I heard a little speck of extra good news for those patient people waiting for those computers. I heard that the software is already on it, that you don't have to do any fancy login to get to Adobe Animate or the other Adobe stuff. I fail to believe that, you know, because all the other computers at school, even physically, you had to log in, right? But that'd be great. That'd make your life even easier. It means you get the computer and do the homework you missed. I will not mark you late. Those people have been waiting for machines. Don't worry about that.
So, so Professor, I have a question.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
yeah, so I borrowed the women's computer do the homework. So it's work.
Oh, you did? How great. Wow,
Yeah,
that's nice. You know,
I went to his house to do it.
oh,
Yeah.
wait, man. It's great to get some support from people like
Yeah.
that. I love that story. Of course that'll work. But I mean, you know, if you want to continue doing that, you know, I mean, of course it's best to have a computer, you know, in your house.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, unless you guys are roommates, you know,
No,
it's
no.
tough. So, I mean, you really should have requested one before. Did you ask for one?
Yes.
All right. So that'll be better. In the meantime, thank you, Wei Ming, for being so helpful. That's great. It's really what we have to do for each other these days. All right. So, yeah, in the meantime, listen, I'm hoping for the best. I really want you all to be able to be creative and forget this nonsense, you know? So anyway, I need to move on and need to talk to you about a couple other things. So those of you who've tried to get the free subscription from Adobe know that currently Adobe's saying that they're going to stop doing that September 30th. So that's 19 days. I personally think they might extend it. So I still like this idea of getting the free subscription. So once you have a computer, a lot of you already have the free subscription. Thank you for being patient. These are the instructions. Do not ask me, right? I'm sorry, I don't have these things memorized. I'm here to teach animation. But here are the instructions, right? Loan computers. Oh, hey, I updated this. Wait a second. Why is this showing up with the old handout? Ah, here we go. I changed this 5 minutes before class. Loan computers may have the software preloaded. Cool. But I'll let you know. If that's not true, you're going to follow these same instructions as everyone else. You know, we'll stay in touch till I find out. If you need the computer, if it doesn't come with Animate on it, we'll go one more step. Folks, this is an unpleasant topic, right? And listen, I got to ask, because I'm keeping a list. Let me just get my page out. So those of you who already have computers, I'm sure you tried to load the Adobe software, the Adobe CC. Was anyone unable to load it? You tried, it just refused? No?
That was my problem for the longest time, and by yesterday I just did and just bought it outright.
You did? All right, what's your major, Joseph?
Animation.
Oh, you made the right move.
Hmm.
You know, I got to say, you know, it's kind of expensive. It's the price of one pizza pie per month. I measure everything in pizza,
Huh.
but per month. You know, and a person who wants to be professional, you want it all. You need your tools, you know. So I respect that. Daniela, you tried to load it and it just wouldn't?
It wouldn't, so I just ended up buying it yesterday.
You did?
Yeah.
But guys, listen, I feel awful having my students spend money that you might or might not have. You know, if you're lucky right now, you got a good job or whatever, you inherited some money. This is a good way to use it. Then I don't feel so bad. But if you're broke like half of this city, that sucks. So listen, I just want to say something about it. Again, I've been reaching out to different people about the Adobe problem. And I have one thing from last week I want to repeat and one new thing. You know, the head of the department asked me if I could videotape next time I try to help someone get into their Adobe Creative Cloud account. And I helped 2 people just to see what it looked like on their end. Their problems were varied. There was no pattern. I'm not sure I have the time to do that again and videotape it and send it to him. But he was saying that if it isn't a technical problem, something done wrong, then it could be a problem with your CUNY First account. You know, some kind of change in the CUNY First account. You know, which is really not unlikely. That actually happened to me because someone else had my name and it caused all kinds of trouble. Luckily, he didn't get my check. But the service desk should be prepared to hear from you. So if you've tried everything you could think of and you still can't get into that free Adobe Creative Cloud account, this is the email address for the service desk. So you have to be clear. You know, if English is your second or third language, make sure someone helps you write it. You have to tell them, I'm in a class that requires this service based on my CUNY First account, right? There's been reason to believe that there's trouble with it. The head of the department asked you to contact these people. Listen, I want to back up though and say one thing about that. This is if you tried everything else and you just can't get in and you don't want to buy it. So I want to show you one more thing. This is the only new thing, newish thing. I mentioned it last week, but I had a little discovery yesterday about this. There seems to be a problem, particularly with people who used it last spring and then stopped using it over the summer. So they used the CUNY First login to get the Adobe stuff successfully in the spring, but they can't do it now. And one of the ideas is that there's something in the computer's memory that's interfering in the cache. But I did something with someone yesterday that got us quite a distance further, I should say. I want to show it to you. So if you're thinking that might be your problem, in Chrome, this is where you erase the browser memory. There's 3 little dots here, and you go to More Tools. This is not on the handout, but it will be on the video. Then, so I went to the 3 dots, I go to More Tools, and I go to Clear Browsing Data. I want to say something about this step. The person who told me about it said empty the cache. So I said, all right, check this. But then I thought about it later, and the problem would probably be this. Because this stores sign-in data. So it's possible that your older sign-in data, I don't know, needs to be refreshed as though it's new. I don't know. But I would add this one and click Clear Data. I want to warn you, though, if you do that, all the sites that remember your usernames and passwords are going to ask you to put them back in. So that's the only price. Anyway, I would recommend this effort if all else has failed. Clear it, go back, start the whole process over. Hang on a second there. That's this one. If all else fails, please write the service desk. Tell them to check your CUNY First account, your username, your login, you know, any issue holds, anything like that. All right, I need to drop that subject, but I want to say one little thing. You know, if anyone really, really wants me to try it with them, right after class, I'll stick around, right? You know, I'll probably record it. So if it doesn't work, I could show it to the big boss and he could give us some advice. That's a lot of words, right? Computers, software. I think I'm done with that stuff. Let me just check before I ask you for questions. I want to get to the material. I guess I need to say, oh yeah, right, this is new. So I do want to mention one more thing. So I've been mentioning remote access to you guys. I don't know if any other teacher has mentioned it to you. And I've been putting it off. So I want to say we're 1 inch closer, and I'm allowing people to try it now if they really must. I want to tell you what it is. So remote access is mostly for people using Chromebooks, and they've been telling, well, that's not true. Let me back up. Basically, it's a way we could use the computers at the school lab through a computer at home. Why would you do it? Well, you can't get into Adobe, or my other class is using Chromebooks because their work's a little less intense, but they can't load software at all. So they remotely access from their computer, whatever it is, Windows, Apple, Chromebook, into the school lab. Now, I tried it, and it's kind of weird. I don't really know how fast it is, how well it's going to behave. We'll know soon. The only reason I'm bringing it up to you guys is this. It's better to get the Adobe access directly on your computer. Fastest, most elegant. But if all else fails, or if Adobe stops giving us the free account, right? Then we're all going to switch to remote access. If anyone wants to try it early, right? If you want to try it early, for any reason, I've included the current instructions on the handout. I got to warn you, you got to read it really closely, go step by step. Some of you might need a hand with it. I went step by step and it did work, so I'm impressed. I was worried. This is the instructions. So I'm not going over them as a group unless we need them, and that's not going to be for a few weeks. But if you do try it for a good reason, tell me about it, okay? I'd like to know. So if you get in, that means from your computer, you're in a school lab. I want you to search for Animate. Look, if you're really good with Windows, you know how to find software. But if not, you at least have to know how to search. Now, if it's loaded on that computer, it'll just open. But I don't expect that to happen. I think it's going to ask you to log in, just like it was your home computer. Log into Adobe. You know, and frankly, once you get in with remote access, I have to admit, you might have to switch back to the Adobe instructions. We'll find out. So if anyone really wants to try to access a computer in the school lab, right, follow these instructions. If the software doesn't open, it's going to ask you to log in with Adobe. It's just going to ask you. And then you'll fill it out according to these instructions. Wow. Listen, I don't know about you, but my head's going to explode. Too many details, for God's sakes. So I have to wind it down. This is what I want to say right now. This has taken us a half an hour, right? And, you know, luckily this is a long class. It takes the same half hour from the short classes. So we have plenty of time to learn. I'm switching into learning and teaching mode now. Everyone has my email address, right? Keep me posted if your computer, well, like I said, you should be getting notice in the next few days if you're waiting. If there's any unique problem, try to give me as much information as clearly as you can, right? Give me your real name, for example. What class are you in? I have over 100 students. Help me out. Explain the situation. I have listened to everybody's requests. You know, I really have. All right, so keep me posted. All right, before we jump into Adobe Animate, do you guys have any questions?
Okay.
Yeah, Tiffany.
Marilla can't send it through her phone file, so I told her to email it to you instead.
Got it. So, you know, I'm probably not going to be able to help with this. I don't have Windows. Tiffany, do you have Windows?
Yeah.
You do? She's like, no, don't ask me, please. I might forward that to you. I'll get the email from her. Marilia, I don't know if she's there because we're looking at her floor. If you can hear me, hi. Listen, remember
That's
this.
my ceiling, not
That's
my
your
floor.
ceiling, not your floor. Okay. Life is so upside down, I can't tell. I think we're all living in an episode of Stranger Things. Remember, this class will be on video. So if you're having trouble today, you could always watch the parts you need of the class on YouTube, right? So right now I'm gonna have to move forward. All right, guys.
Okay.
You know what I'm tempted to do? I kind of want to switch it up. You know, on my handout, it has looking at the homework last. But I think it might be more interesting if we look at it first. You know, just so you can see what people have done with what we already learned. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to ignore my own handout a little bit and go out of order, right? So listen, guys, I want to say a little bit about that last homework. What we learned was a couple drawing tricks in Adobe Animate, you know, just a little bit about how to get shapes down, and frame by frame techniques, how you draw in every frame, which we're going to do more of today and go into a deeper place. And we're also going to learn a new form of animation called shape tweening, a newer form today. So it's going to be a big day. But I got to say, what I'm looking for in the homework, so everybody hear me on this one, is personality. Personality, originality, a certain amount of smoothness. You know, we're here to make, frankly, most of us are going to be entertainers, right? Most animation is entertainment. Some of us are going to be doing, you know, informational stuff, but it has to feel smooth. Now, look, it's early in the class, so I'm not asking for a lot, but I'll be asking for more. I got to say, people did well. I want to show it to you. Oh, yeah, folks, if you couldn't get into Google Drive, you know, you tried to get me the homework. Some of you were very smart and sent me gifts as attachments. In an emergency, I would accept that, but this is not an emergency. I fixed the Google Drive, right? So if you couldn't do it before, you could do it now, right? You could drop it off. So remember that shortcut was on last week's handout, but it's also at the end of this week's handout to get into the drive. You just drop your homework in there. All right, I want to stop. Let's look at some stuff together. All right. So here's my Google Drive. And I'm going to actually look at them right here, which is a wonderful thing that Google Drive lets me do. So I want to say something about Zechariah's fun animation. You know, it's simple, which it needed to be. It's playful. It's kind of surprising, and it's abstract. So I want to remind you that I told you guys you could be abstract, meaning not really have a story, right? And if you do abstract, I said, make it look like you meant it though, that very intentional. You know, you knew where you were trying to head, right? This work does exactly that. That ball is doing really interesting things, going both above and below the line. There's color changes. It's kind of hypnotic. Go, Zechariah. I like this. Are you there? It takes me so long to get. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm here. I'm
well
here.
done. Well done. This
Thank
is
you.
really what I was looking for. I got to say though, there's competition. Watch this.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Callista, I got to ask you something. Have you done animation elsewhere? Did you do it on your own? I see. I don't know if she's got a microphone.
She says yes.
She says yes. I'm squeezing at the chat. Well done. You know, I'm kind of curious, you know, where you learned it and what program you used, because you're clearly leveraging what you learned. And I think she's going to light a fire under a lot of people's feet saying, oh my God, she could do that. I'm going to have some, you know, friendly competition.
She first used Photoshop.
So you did the art, she did the artwork in Photoshop, I guess, and then brought them into Animate? I want to find out, Callista, if this was done in Animate ultimately, or was it all done in Photoshop? So while Callista's answering that question, I want to say I'm not going to accept work that was done in Photoshop. But I don't mind if you figured out how to do the drawings there and brought them in. That's fine. You know, a lot of
Okay,
people.
so the background was done in Photoshop and the character was done in Animate.
Well, Callista, you just rock. That's all I have to say. She did a great job. You know, this character's got charisma. You know, to be honest with you, it's not that I completely understand what's going on, other than she's in the wind, which is really hard to do. You know, she even shaded things in the wind, which makes it even harder. I'm really openly impressed, and a beautiful background done in Photoshop. All right. Well done. Okay. I want to show you a simple one, but I like it a lot. You know, this guy's just, you know, he's hilarious, you know, and you know what, you know, Joseph understands already that for a person to feel believable, they need to blink and their eyes can't stay still. And, you know, that might sound obvious, but it really isn't. We're going to spend some time on elaborate eye blinking techniques and eyes moving. He's also got the mouth convincingly opening. So I just want to give you some advice, Joseph. I like this work a lot, and it's going to score fairly big for a homework 1. But I would like to say that what you could do going forward is consider the shape of your whole canvas. You know, you're like a photographer who's got to look at the entire square.
Yeah, I did that rushingly since I bought Animate like yesterday night.
Gotcha. So look, there's no need to redo this. I like the work a lot, quite a bit. But in the future, you know, you want to make use of the whole frame. The whole thing is part of it. You know, however you do it, by changing the size of the object or the background color or introducing other elements, you know what I mean? But I have to say, I love the character. So it's really showing a lot of promise. I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work. So you should definitely feel good about it. Got a lot of charisma. This, you know, wild science fiction moment by Wei Ming, you know, of course the GIFs are looping. So this guy's under a light pole, the stick man, who's really animated stick man. Look at him waving his arms around. He's like, no. I don't know, maybe he's saying, please take me. I've had enough of this country. But, you know, he's telling me a whole story in the smallest amount of time. A lot of respect. So, you know, I want to also say to Wei Ming that, you know, I really like this. You did a lot with a little. I am kind of curious to see how you would upgrade in the weeks to come in terms of making use of that space. He needed room for the UFO to take off. But I have to say, other than that, the right side is very hungry. You know, so there's a bit of a design issue, but I have to say, it's really good for week 1. Really, really good for week 1. You're welcome. This is a strange one. So, you know, it's kind of interesting. You know, Eduardo kind of mixed the idea of narrative, storytelling, with abstraction, you know, because, you know, and essentially it's just a shape, changing shape. I'm trying to figure out what the smaller object actually is. Eduardo, what is this little thing on the right side?
It's supposed to be kind of like, you know, it's like, you know, like hand and along with, you know, some sort of like vial of sorts. I forgot to like, you know, add in like, you know, certain things to make it more clearer. But yeah.
Like a vial, like a scientist would hold?
Yeah. I forgot to add in like other stuff like that, like in the background. I was like, oh, when I saw it again.
Gotcha. So Eduardo, I want to share something with you. I want to tell you where that one is best. That one's got a solid design. So in other words, if I took a still shot of it, is the rectangle used in a way that actually works? You know, we have a lot to do this semester, but I have to say in almost every class I teach, I have to include this love of the rectangle speech. I'm not going to give you the speech today, but truly, any photographer, any illustrator, any painter, any graphic designer, any animator, any filmmaker has to love the whole rectangle. So one thing I like about Eduardo's is you can tell he's doing this balancing act. This is why he's got this thing on the left. So that's a big plus. So I want to tell you what else though. Eduardo, in the way of advice about moving forward, I need props. Like if that thing is holding a vial like a scientist, you know, like a test tube, right? I need other stuff. in there. You know, like he's trying to get me to understand the environment without the clues. If I say haunted house to you and you imagine a room, what do you need to show me for me to know it's a haunted house? You know, do you need a dirty mirror? Do you need cobwebs? You know, what do you need for me to get it? You know, if I say psychiatrist's office, I need one of those little sideways couches they use. I need the symbols that we recognize. For a hospital, what do I need? So you're going to constantly be creating your own sets, right? So I got to say, I like the design on that one. The rest of it is okay, but I know he's going to rock us next week with something better, even better. It's okay. I love this one. I just really got to say it really frankly, Kayla, I love it. Really, this is motion graphics big time, because it's not so much about the story. But I got to be honest, it does, I think she's referencing types of puppet show, because all the clouds are on a cord. So it feels like somebody's moving these objects around, or at least the one in the foreground. So one could argue it is narrative. Here's a puppet show, you know, kind of. But it's a beautiful graphic. You know, it's almost like a little animation you'd see before the weather report, you know. And what I love about it is the colors are so sensitive. The shapes are so sensitive, as simple as it is. Even the shapes between the shapes, called negative space, is beautiful. This is just rock solid work. Kayla, I can't see you, but I hope you're smiling, because really, it was nice, wasn't it? Don't you guys think? I mean, really, it just looks professional. It's not always about the epic movie, right? You know, what makes something feel real? That just feels real.
I'm gonna be honest. I thought that was like stop motion.
Was it? There's nothing wrong with stop motion. I love stop motion. My first movie was in stop motion, but it isn't, you know. So that's fine. Simple animation. Probably the artist might not like it looping, right? Because, you know, it does that weird movement. But I don't really mind that right now. But what I love is the personality of it. He's got clouds coming from both directions, which is kind of unusual, right? You don't usually see that, but I kind of like it. It's like they're colliding on this tulip. I like that I kind of know what flower it is. I completely love that the artist is including the little leaf on the stem of the tulip that is also reacting to wind, I would say, logically, but it almost feels more like the clouds themselves are doing something to the tulip. So there's all this stuff to enjoy and think about in a very short idea. I really like it. And I like Matthew's design, you know, quite a bit. Hey,
I didn't get to finish it. That's why it was supposed to come open completely. That's why it's so short.
Oh gosh, you did a great job. Yeah, so I mean, if you want to take it further, I'd love to get a peek at it, but I'm very, very, very happy with it. You know, even these short ones take a couple of hours. Am I right? Matthew, how long did you think that took you?
Let me see. Maybe 4 or 5 hours to get everything in place.
Okay, listen, nobody run. Don't run. Just because he said 4 or 5 hours doesn't mean you have to do that. Look, I respect that, Matthew. You must be very serious about what you want out of this class. You know, I want to say something about this. So look, I'm a lifetime artist, and some of you are too. I started very, very young. So I've had over a 40-year career already. And there's one thing that I know about lifetime artists. Whenever you binge, art binge, right? Not Netflix, not booze, art binge. That 5 hours equals 10 hours of learning. There's something about compounding time where you don't even know what time it is. You know, you're so intense, right? A lot of you guys know that. It's the zone, right? It's a lot of artists do art because they want to get in the zone. But frankly, that's how you get really good. You can't do that every week. I know that. Maybe Matthew's got a job and other classes and stuff. If he could do it every week, that's great, but he might not be able to. So sometimes you got to go short and smart. What could I do in 1 hour or an hour and a half? I want to drop that subject, but I just want to squeeze in something. you might be in this class thinking, maybe I want to be an animator. There's nothing wrong with that. When I went to school, I thought I wanted to be a cartoonist. Then I thought I wanted to be an illustrator. And I thought I wanted to be a painter. And in the end, I became all those things. I didn't choose one. But if you want to choose something you really, really love, it's going to be about the hours, period. That's it. You crank out those hours, you're going to get excellent. You do not crank in those hours, you won't. This is not blame. If life is hard, what can you do? But the end game truth is, those great athletes, you know, that guy who could shoot the ball, get it in the hoop every time, 10 times in a row, that guy's shooting 100 hoops a day. Of course he's that good. You know, that's like tens of thousands of efforts per year. It's the same for artists. So respect is basically what I'm saying. All right.
Can I point something out?
Yes. On the last one?
Well, no, not really. Like, it's more like
In general? Yeah, go ahead.
the like animation process.
Yes.
I feel like that one of the things that you gotta understand about like making good animation is like not focus on if like the final product is gonna look good, but enjoy the process. Like
That's pretty wise.
like that's pretty much with like every drawings, and I feel like that a lot of people who like start out drawing like always make this mistake of like worrying about if their drawing would look good like when they're finished, that
Taro,
you always forget to like enjoy like the process of it.
He's got some maturity beyond his years going on there. Because like the truth of it is, if it's always agony, you can't clock in the hours, right? And then you can't get excellent. So I always reserve the right to do bad art. And I think every great artist reserves the right to make bad art, because that means you're experimenting, you're trying, you're freeing out, you're not copying anybody, but mostly, you know, you're keeping the passion alive. And then you find that you could do more, spend more time, and eventually, you know, become excellent. But the goal is not like, yeah, it's true about drawing. Oh, I can't even draw a straight line, people love to say to me. And I'm like, that's great. Artists almost never draw a straight line. So that's good. Not a worry. But it's
There's no such thing as one-dimensional art.
And what do you mean by that, though?
How do I put it this way? Well, you know, dimensions just pretty much means like multiple directions.
That's what
I'm pretty sure that one-dimensional. I mean, I'm pretty sure that a one-dimensional drawing would just be a thin straight line.
Right, no imagination. You know, it's true. I'm going to get back to the work right now, but I got to say, like, your mind, your heart, your intuition, your logic, that's 4 different things. They team up. That's already 4 dimensions. So I have to agree with what he said, but also your joy. All right, let's get back. Because life is hard, I realize, you know, and so I want to, you know, just say something about this one, right? I wish it didn't loop, right? Because it's not the artist's fault, so just ignore it. But there's some things I really like. One thing I want to point out, technical thing I'm going to go over later. I like the relationship of that line on the ball quite a bit. He's treating that line as though like the ground itself has a segment with personality. That's kind of a strange and wonderful idea. You know, it's not like someone walking around with an umbrella, an expected prop. This one is kind of traveling along with its own kind of floating floor. And they have a relationship, and eventually the ball itself just sort of cracks. So, you know, the other things in there, I'm not sure they add quite as much, the sudden 2 dots that show up on that ball. But I think the biggest obstacle for me right now is the transparent background. So I'm going to show you, Benpu, later on how to make sure that the background doesn't show up transparent again. But I want to say for the record, people will do that if they want to take it into another program and use elements in the background in the other program, like in After Effects or something like that. Or they're putting it on a website and they want the website's color. to be the background. There are reasons, but usually we want to show the background. I promise I'm going to show you this later, but not right now. I have to say, this is okay for a start. I'm going to leave it right now. You definitely want to up your game a little bit. And I just want to say one more thing to a few of you. .gif is not acceptable. .gif, you see that? So be careful when you name them that you're not using an extension twice. All right, so that's okay. The work's done, you know, but I got a feeling we're going to expect more from that artist later on. I want to show you Jacob's very geometric kind of love affair between flying objects, which is
planes.
It's kooky. They're planes?
Yeah.
Oh, so in my mind, they were like, you know, kind of retro UFOs. You know, because there's a lot of retro appeal in this one. You notice how he did the clouds like we're in a game from like 1970, you know, one of those old games. And I know you did that purposely, which I really like. It's got that weird kind of bitmap kind of look up in the sky. Frankly, if we were going to do this for a client, you would have to make everything look that way. They'd all have to be made of vertical and horizontal lines, so the whole thing feels that kind of mosaic-like feeling, like it's made out of tiles that really old school video games have, and that kind of animation. But I have to say, I just love the crazy idea of it, that you made the whole space count, that they come toward each other, and she's got a ribbon on her, which is just hilarious. Then obviously there's a love affair. I know just what their children are going to look like. All right, anyway. So it's kind of fun and kooky and openly original. So I want to say a couple things about this one. You know, one of my favorite things about it is you get so focused on the white field when you first see the animation that you're kind of surprised when that thing comes down and seems to erase the bottom of the screen. Like for right now, my screen is really dark, which makes this animation even more fun. Because it was like, what? Did it just escape the stage? It dropped off stage? No, it's just crafty. I also really like the way those circles circle around each other at that moment. I got to tell you, the only two things that I'm not a big fan of on this one really is the rainbow gradient. So I just want to say, Ming Lang, don't worry about it. But the reason I don't like the rainbow gradient is it's so overused. It exists in almost every program that has color, so it makes it come off as kind of corny. I would avoid, you know, rainbows for that reason. Also, the oval shape feels kind of random, so it doesn't have as much power as the circles do. And look, I want to say something to you guys. And look, I know most of you are happiest when you work with me, but I got to be honest, when I'm gone, if you ever remember me, you're going to remember something I said about art, not a technique. Really, I had many art teachers, and it was the ones who shared the philosophy of art that helped me the most. So I want to say something. What is a strong shape? What does that even mean, a strong shape? A strong shape you feel in your gut, and you know that it's strong. So if you draw a perfect person and one hand feels like a noodle, right? You know that it's wrong, right? Because you know what hands look like. But it also, you know it's wrong because it's not a strong shape. When a shape is strong, you know it. Look, we don't have time for this, but if I made you all do designs with squares, circles, and triangles only, some of you would rock it. You'd do great. And others would not because they don't have a feeling yet about how to use the strength of shapes. Start of it is to believe that that exists, that some shapes are stronger than others to the human mind. What the human mind enjoys looking at makes a strong shape. It's just about us. Why are there so many squares and circles and triangles? Because they're profoundly strong shapes. You know, so we have to see, why does the oval feel dubious? You know, I don't know. It can be used. Well, you might use it making someone's eye, but we'll see. I have to say, though, I like this one a lot because of the abstract pleasure of it. The first half of it is particularly excellent, though I do love it erasing the bottom, though. I think that's, you know, just very, very clever. Joe, I just want to see something here because I had Is there a Joe Smith in this class? Joe, I'm kind of bewildered.
That was you from last week, I believe.
That was me from last week. Zechariah, thank you. I'm appropriately embarrassed, but that's okay. Okay, let's move on. Guys, listen, I don't know that we'll be able to do that very often, but every couple of weeks at least, I'd like to show your work. One, you can see what you just don't like, no matter what I say, all right? And why you don't like it is important. You can see what you love and learn and get excited by one of your peers. And maybe you want to show them up. Look, we're gonna make a bunch of art in a couple of minutes. I do want to mention something though. So I went to art school in New York City, and there were 200 people in one of my classes. I couldn't believe it. Class was so big, they taught it in a theater. Teacher got on stage in front of 200 of us. We were in this big theater, and I thought at first, this is terrible. I'm not going to learn anything. And he was one of the best teachers I ever had in my life. But the reason I bring it up, it's kind of an illustration class. He showed 20 pieces a week. And a big chunk of the class was analyzing the 20 pieces he chose. So it was all about thinking in art, thinking as an artist, but it was also about trying to beat 180 people so that your work would get shown. And if your work got shown, everybody knew who you were. They thought you were amazing. If you're shown 2 weeks or 3 weeks in a row, everybody wanted to know you. What secret, what magic did you have? So I have to say, looking at each other's work is a great way to move yourself forward. Hey, does anybody have any questions about all of that or comments you'd like to make before we move forward? No. So listen, guys, give me a half a second. I just got to close this door. I'm very loud. Hey. All right. Let's get busy. We're going to take a break at some point, but I want to get us off the ground. I'm going to take a look at the handout with you. Oh, listen, guys, you know, the homework technically is due at midnight. It's always great to do it before the due day if you want to be included in exhibits like that. But you're not late, right? So if any of you missed it, a couple of you looks like haven't done it yet, do it today. All right, if you can. If you don't have equipment, you got an extension. All right, let me get back here. So all the tech stuff, and there we begin. So what I really want to do is I want to take some of the learning stuff we learned from last week and some of the frame by frame logic we learned from last week and onion skinning, which we started last week. And I want to do something more complicated called the worm exercise. We're going to make a worm crawl straight across the stage. It's going to be a lot more challenging than the geometric shapes we were using last week. So if you've got the what you need, go right ahead and open Animate now. First, I want to do a tiny bit of review. Judging by the homework, you guys don't need a lot of review. We're going to do a tiny bit and then move forward. So I want to remind you that you can always click Create New for a new page, but what's more common is going to the File menu and choosing New. Frankly, they're pretty much the same. I'm going to stick with the File menu, New. And it's got several common shapes. I'm going to stick right now with the one we were using last week, which is the one called Standard. Nothing standard about it, to be honest. But we're going to use it 640 wide by 480 tall. That's always measured in pixels. I want you to check that your frame rate is set to 24. It will change everything I show you if you have a different frame rate. So please set it to 24. Then click Create. Now, I want to go over a couple of quick things before we move forward. Could everybody grab the rectangle tool? Now, I want to remind you that the rectangle tool selects color from down here, with the fill color for the inside and the stroke color for the outside. But it also has color way over on the right in this area called the properties palette. One thing worth noticing in the properties palette is there's actually tools, object, frame, and dock. So it's going to give you the properties for the object you're currently on or the tool you're currently on. Sometimes you have to click one of these manually though. So it doesn't matter which you use for color. Can you choose a fill color for yourself and a stroke color? And before we move further, let's make the stroke weight a little bigger. So I'm going to drag this little slider over here. Now that you do have to do on the right side to 5 pixels. I want to ask you guys something. Is it easy to find the properties palette on your right? You know, this has been a problem because Adobe has changed the way we lay out screens, right? So if you're not finding tools, you have to let me know. Don't be shy. We'll take a minute and help you get what you need. All right. So then you draw your rectangle. Let's say you wanted to change it, right? Let's say you wanted to change the stroke. Can you please get your black arrow? Now, guys, this is a little deeper than I went last week, right? So don't think this is purely review. It isn't. I want you to take that black arrow and click one side of the rectangle. One side. Be careful. If you see dots in the middle, then that's not what we want, right? So I want you to click one side. Drag it off. So I want to point out, this is the only program I know of that behaves that way. I could change one side if I want to. But if I want to change them all, I better put that back and try it again. So let's Command Z on a Mac or Control Z to get that back. If you want just the stroke, but all of it, you have to double click it. That's one good way to choose a different color. It's one good way to get ready to change the stroke weight. I do want to say though, you might go far even if you forget that, because what everyone seems to remember is this. If the object's not selected, you can double click inside to select the whole thing. Double clicking inside is probably what you're going to do the most, right? That'll select the whole thing. So you could change anything you want about it. You could still change the stroke or the stroke weight. All right. I need to show you something I didn't mention last week, right? About the black arrow and its relationship to these drawings. This is a little Photoshoppy, this part. If you click off the object, I want you to notice that if you drag over the object with the black arrow, you selected one little part, which means you could move it if you need to, or you could change the color of that one part. I got to admit, I'll use this, but I don't usually use it with strokes because this gets weird. It's hard to see any use of that. You know, I'm more likely to do that kind of thing. And you don't have to join me on this one. I just want to show you something. I'm going to show you off stage for a minute. If I'm working without a stroke, I'm choosing stroke of none this time. I could use what I just learned to do all kinds of things like start a simple chair. And then it's easier if I want a stroke to put a stroke on afterwards. You know, if I really want the stroke. Should I include how to add a stroke after? I don't know how often you're going to want it, but I might as well give you a quick look at it. I don't use this feature a hell of a lot, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Hiding under the paint bucket is this thing called the ink bottle. And that's kind of like a paint bucket for strokes. It looks at the current color and the current stroke weight. And then I just click on an object. Whoa, that's a big stroke weight. And I could add the stroke. It's kind of interesting. All I'm saying is strokes take thought, right? Does anybody have any questions for me about any of that? it's not the top level of importance. So I'm going to move forward a little bit.
Is there a
Yeah.
way to use shapes that shapes that overlap each other but don't cut each other up? We have to put those in separate frames, right?
You know something? That is a great question, Joseph. And I'm going to answer it even though I was going to put it off for the future. But let's get a taste of it right now. I want to give you, first off, keep an open mind. I want to mention a couple of things, right? Then we're going to choose one method just to explore it a bit, right? Frankly, within a week or a couple of weeks, right, you're going to be using layers mostly, right? And that's going to let you lock layers so the objects on top will never take bites out of each other. So layers is one solution that we're going to get at. Another thing that's going to happen is you're going to take objects and put them in what's called a library. We turn most of our artwork into something called symbols, and that is like a library object. Those are freeze-dried, they're frozen. They don't change shape in that way. So that is another way. So there's more than one way to protect your object. I'm going to stick my neck out a little bit for a minute. I hope I'm not wrong by doing this, because I want to share with you something unique to this program. It's a little intense. I just want to give you a peek at it. I'm going to select all and press delete. You could do the same. If you're having a hard time getting around, the view menu offers you a bunch of different viewing options. I'm going to talk about better ways, but for right now, I just want to remind people of that. Okay, I want to show you guys something. This rectangle here, could you look really closely, everybody? Because this doesn't show up so great on the screen. There's this little feature down here, this little tiny circle, right? Now, this is what it looks like clicked, and it's so subtle you can barely see that it's even clicked. There's a slightly gray frame around it. I'm going to unclick it. Now, we've not touched this. Now, what that means when you don't touch it is you're in what's called merge mode. This program has two options, merge mode and object mode. What Joseph wants is object mode. So I want to show you the difference. And if you want to join me on this, why not? It will pay off. So it's not on the schedule, but I'm going to do it, right? All right, so choose your rectangle tool this time. Come down here and get a good look what it looks like down. Slight gray box around it, but please release it. Now, you got your rectangle tool. This is in its default state. That's merge mode. It's released. It's not down. I want you to make sure that you got a fill color ready, but I don't want a stroke. So you got this tool. This button is up. I want you to come here for the stroke and choose this. Stroke of none. You don't want a color, you don't want a stroke at all. So in merge mode, if you do this, we know that that's one shape. Right? This is what we did last week. And it has the advantages of, well, I could merge, I could take parts out, I could change the shape as I go along, and I'll build lots of things this way. You know, cars and buildings and stuff. Now, I want to compare it. You guys with me? So we've not done this before. This is new, all right? We're gonna do a little bit object mode stuff. I wanna show you. This time, get the rectangle tool, keep the same colors, right? Just to fill. No stroke is better for this demonstration. This time, come down and click this button. You gotta keep your eye on it, right? Because sometimes it's very subtle. Right? It's very subtle. I have to really stare it down to tell that it's down. I want you to put a rectangle here. And I want you to overlap it just like you did last time. Now I'm going to get my black arrow here and do something. Look at that. They did not merge. They stayed independent. Pretty interesting, Joseph, right? Is that working for you?
Yeah, it's something that I'm much more used to now.
You know what? I got to tell you something about this. Illustrator users, Adobe Illustrator users, they're very useful people, right? For animators and for other people. But Illustrator, by default, behaves in object mode. It doesn't even have merge mode. So the shapes always stay separate unless you know how to merge them. You have to take extra steps. So it looks at it the other way. The default there is things always stay separate. So since I got brave and showed that to you, what we're going to keep our eye on as we move through the semester is when is one better and when is another one better. Like at a later date, we're going to make cars together because we're going to want to make the wheels turn and the whole car move. So the thing is, I like building my car mostly in merge mode. I add shapes to get the shape of the car, the profile of the car. And then if I want to add things that I think I need freedom to move around, maybe I'll add the window in object mode. Should I go over that just one more time? I think I better.
Yeah.
Let's do that
Yeah.
one more time. Can everybody clear your screen? Command A is a great way to do it. Command A selects everything, or Control A on Windows, right? Then press delete. All right, guys, I'm going to go back to the default mode, right? Hey, I just want to check one quick thing. Give me a minute here. I'm wondering, I want to see if I can make that easier for everybody to see. Do I really want to do this? I don't know. Oh, should I stick my neck out now? All right, I'm going to try it. All right, that's not what I want. Maybe it is. Anyway, let me just take a quick look. I'm going to see if this is easier for people to see or not. I don't really like this. It's not a hell of a lot better. All right, forget it. Give me one second. Thought I was being clever, but not as clever as I need to be. I'm just going to turn this back to light. All right. Does everybody have a blank screen? Your first step is to use a simple shape tool. I'm using the rectangle. For this demonstration, it's going to work far better without a stroke. So you could pick a new fill color if you want to, but you do have to make sure that stroke looks like this. So you click that stroke box and choose this, color of none. Now, before you move, you have to double check this button over and over again. If it's got a faint extra box around it, a grayish box around it, that's not what we want. Press it again. That's released. We're in merge mode. So pile up a couple objects. I'm making a little building. And I like this, because I could work with my building and try other kind of fancy ideas about it, with great ease. I quite like that, right? And I can click on it anytime and move it around, change its color, because it's one object, because it's merged. Now, we're going to switch into object mode, guys. So get the rectangle tool. Let's stick with the same colors, all right? The fill, but no stroke. This time you come down here and you press that button. And if you draw something similar, you're going to discover that they behave very differently. This one, I'm going to wind up selecting one object at a time. So they're rather independent objects. Sometimes you're going to want this. Sometimes you're not. These could be moved around freely. So look, I think what I'd like to do most of today is stay in merge mode. That's the default mode. It's got the oldest history in Adobe Animate and in its parent, Adobe Flash, right? But I have to say, Joseph and anyone else who's interested, you should feel free to use both modes whenever you want, either mode. My demonstrations today are going to stay in merge. I think I'm going to throw one thing in for anyone who's feeling greedy. Can you change your mind? That's an interesting one. How do you change your mind? All right, let me show you how you change your mind. So I want to get these back to the same color for a minute. So just give me, I'm Command Zing, by the way. All right, so they look kind of similar. Now, if I want this one to stop being editable, you know, I'm worried that other objects are going to break it. Oh, this one was in merge mode somehow. Hang on a second there. Hang on a minute. So if I'm worried about this happening, right, this is what I'm going to do. Select the object that's currently in merge mode, the object that lets you do all that stuff. Select it. If you want to freeze dry it, I want you to take a look at something with me. If you go over to the right side on your properties palette, it probably says object now. This one here, all right, this is hard to remember, is the create object button. So it lets you take things that you've merged and then say, you know what, I'm done, it's perfect. I'd like to keep it that way. So you select the object, come over here and click this button, and now it'll move as one unit. You could still change color. You could still change its shape. That's kind of fun. But other objects will not merge with it. It's independent unto itself. So I'm going to just do that one more time. I'm going to show you something in a second. If the object is in merge mode, it's got the little dots on it, you'll know it. You can go to the properties palette and click this to freeze it. I'm probably going to be doing that, not today, but down the road. And I'll show you why I like it. If I've drawn the perfect, I was using a car as an example, and I used every feature I could think of, I might want to freeze it, make an object out of it. We'll be learning other ways though. All right, I want to show you on the other one though. This one here is independent. And maybe you want to do that so that while you're thinking, you can, you know, try out different things. And you're thinking, okay, once it's perfect, I wish it was one object. Right? These are sorry. That one's made of 4 objects. I want to make it into one, right? An editable object, one single editable object. Well, the one with the separate parts, select them all. So probably your best bet is to use the black arrow, start nearby it and drag over the whole thing. So they're separate. I want to merge, I want to make them behave in merge mode. This button here is called break apart. It's next to this create object. This is break apart, and it's one object now. I don't know if I'm overdoing this, but judging by the homework, you guys are plenty capable of absorbing a lot, right? So I'm saying now, if you have a frozen object, we call it object mode. You could break it up, break apart. By the way, that last step, I do Command B. That button didn't used to exist. B for break apart means break them up now. I don't want them frozen. If they're the same color, they're going to fuse right on the spot. You know, you can see the difference in behavior. So now this is the solid one. It's got a box to prove it. This one's got the little dots to remind you it's in merge mode. All right, I want to pull
Can you
back.
go over the merge again and the freeze?
Yes. All right. It's okay. This is, I'm good. You know, one thing, the virtue of these longer classes is you really get to answer more questions.
I'm sorry, I was writing down
Don't be
notes.
sorry. Hey man, I'm gonna tell you something. You know what won me over? I really got to tell you, I'm excited about this class, but I thought the level of homework for the first assignment was higher than I'm used to, right? So that was like, holy cow, I got more serious people here than I knew. Because, you know, frankly, the animation crowd is kind of wonky. The video people are like that too. There's a lot of daydreamers. They're not really serious. They'd rather watch all day, get paid to watch. Since they can't, they're like, I'll try making it, but they're not serious. But judging by the homework, I've got people here who really want to give it a go. So let me answer his question. If you want to join me on this, select all, right? Command A or Control A, and press delete. All right, guys, let's isolate thoughts for a minute, right? I'm going to try to clarify this so everybody feels rock solid. The first step is decide what you want. Now, I'm going to start in merge mode because it's damn cool, right? You saw me make a chair and all these cool things out of it. So I often start in merge mode. So let's do that. You get your drawing tool. You come down here and you make sure this button is not pressed. As subtle as it is, you got to look real closely. It's not pressed. So we're in merge mode. That's the default. If you never heard of it, you'd be in merge mode forever. You pile up some objects. Now, since you started in merge mode, this is one object. It merged. All right, here's all the proof. And that means, of course, that you could do this other trick if you ever had a reason to. You might remember this from last week. In merge mode, objects that overlap take bites out of each other if you move one. So that would be hard to do otherwise. So I like merge mode for this kind of thing. Now, again, one more time, we're going to compare it to the opposite point of view. You need the freedom to move parts around without any holes, without any bites being taken, right? You have some motive for that. So, again, I'm going to use the same tool, but this time I check and say, you know what? I do not want merging. You press it down. This is often called object mode or object drawing. So I come over here, making some similar moves. I could even do this if I really wanted. Right? I'm going to leave that last one out because it complicates the matter. But if you go to the black arrow, you're going to see this one on the left and this one on the right are very different. The one on the right knows that they're separate objects. I can make whatever kind of changes I want because of it. And you know, it's more flexible than one would think because one could still change shape. You just can't use other shapes. They're independent. So you could change shapes, you could change colors, you could do all kinds of cool things, but they're independent of each other.
What tool is that one? The one you made to use those curves?
The black arrow. That will work on either one. You go over to the edge. It's awesome. It is starting to look like a person. It just needs arms. So the cool thing is the black arrow will let you adjust shapes either way. But here's the main difference. The first set became one shape. The other one are still separate shapes. So you can't do any of that fancy cookie cutter stuff that I do. You know, put a yellow circle over there and delete it to make a hole. That's just merge mode stuff. Now, in fairness to Matthew, he might have been asking me about how I move back and forth if I change my mind. So I'm going to go over that one more time. Look, this is going to take practice. I by the way, have a very long Adobe Illustrator history. And Adobe Illustrator does not look at it this way. You know, I teach Adobe Illustrator elsewhere for over 20 years. So it took me a while to get used to this, but now I'm kind of in love with it. You know, so I want to show you again. So let's say this object is so perfect, you want to make sure that no other object can hurt it. You know, that's your idea. No other object should be able to touch this guy in any dangerous way. Well, select it. You'll see the little dots. It's a merge object. It's a merge drawing, I should say. Merge drawing. Click it. And then you go to the properties palette. This button here will turn it into an object. That's the language this program uses. I'm going to try to be better about how I use it. In other words, it's freeze-dried object. It can't be touched by other objects. It's independent. I'm going to click it. You know, with a rectangle, it's hard to tell, but with crazier shapes, it's easy to tell because it gets this box around it. And you could still use the black arrow to adjust it. You just can't add new shapes to it no matter what you do. They're going to be independent. So even if I add another shape and they have a weird stacking order problem, the new shape went on the back. So that's something we'll have to deal with. I don't want to go there right now, though. This object's independent. Now this object here, I could merge, but the only thing that worries me about it is this red box. It's not going to do what I want. If I want a real merged object, they're going to have to match. We saw that last week. So I might have to click this one and change its color. I want to show you something about that. You'll know that you could click here and click this to choose a color. But you might not have noticed that this little eyedropper that showed up automatically lets you borrow any color. Or just anything on screen. So I'm going to borrow this. So before I merge these separate objects, I might want to check that they're the same color. All right. I'm going to take the three of them here. So these are separate objects. They're in object mode. They're really three separate drawings. They see themselves as independent. But if I don't like that, I don't use this button. I use the one next to it. This is called break apart. Break apart their separate identities and put them in merge mode. What's the advantage? Well, I could use other shapes and add it. This is now one shape, right? Because I'm in merge mode. This one, I can't do that. Folks, remember, all this is on video, right? This, by the way, if you ever want to take notes, we're an hour and a half in, so it's somewhere around there on the YouTube video. You know, I can't believe it's an hour and a half in, but this is important time, so I really don't mind it. I really, really don't at all. It's going to be very useful. But I will say it's going to take practice to get to know what you want. Listen, here's a confession. I've been doing this program and its parent program roughly 20 years. And I stayed in merge mode for 15 years. Only merging. I think they didn't have object mode. It's possible that when they introduced it, I didn't notice. So I was like, oh, this is how the Animate behaves, but the other stuff's like Illustrator. But the last couple of years, though, I've been getting really into it because it gives me more freedom than I used to have. Folks, we're going to need to move on. There may be more questions about this, but I think really it's going to be practicing the two. The thing you want, the only thing I'm going to add is this. The only thing I don't like, can you watch this, guys? I really want you to watch this. When I choose a tool and I check, let's say I put it in object mode, right? I see the little thing around it. That means it's going to create independent circles now. And I'm going to prove it. I switch to the black arrow. And you can see they're independent. They move by themselves, right? They didn't become one object. The thing that's odd is that button stays down. It doesn't remember the tool. It's like, oh, this is how you want to draw. We're staying like this. So every tool you use is going to behave like that. Watch. Here's the rectangle. And they look merged, but they're not. See that? Doesn't matter what tool I take now, they're all going to behave. All the new drawings are going to be independent. So the only thing you have to remember is, as soon as you don't want that behavior, click any tool that draws, change the button. I want to move forward with something else. I'll choose a tool that draws and release the button. Everything I draw now is going to merge. Here's my green snowman coming up. And he's merged. It's one object. That's a lot of information. So all I'm saying is, think of it as this. I'm in object mode or merge mode until I click that button. Right? If you click it, it's staying in that mode for the rest of your life unless you click it again. Right? It's not tool specific, it's program wide. All right. Anybody have any questions for me? You know, I usually take a break around now, but I feel like we just scratched the surface. Can we go a little further? All right, let's vote, because I really don't mind. I can go either way. How many people would like to break now? If you want to break now, give me a thumbs up. No judgment. Oh, okay. We're in agreement. All right, one person. Sorry, Ben Pooh, you're outvoted. All the hands down. They're saying we'll say. I promise we'll break soon, though. I just want to try something. All right. Can everybody select all this stuff? Command A. Click in there. Command A or Control A. You really need that one. It's in every program. And press delete. I want to make a worm cross this screen, right? And what we need to do is make sure that you could really see the entire screen and some of the left off screen, off stage, I should say, and off stage on the right. Can I draw your attention to this? This lets you back up in very specific ways. This here on the right side has different, default sizes. The thing is 75% is too small and 100% in this case is pretty good, but I just want to make sure you could see this and this. By the way, Command minus is pretty cool. Command plus is pretty cool, but it goes too fast. The leaps are very large. So I find myself in this one program using this feature a lot. So I want you to get comfortable. Make sure you could see the whole stage and a little of the room around it. This is a little too close. I'm going to back up a bit. We're all on different screens, right? So we're going to make different choices. All right, I want to try something with a tool we haven't used yet. I just want to make sure that I really do want to use this tool. Do I? Give me 1 second. I want to double check something. All right, let's use this. Okay, guys, I'm going to need a hand from you in a minute. On the toolbar, on my toolbar, there's this brush tool. It's called Classic Brush. If you have other brushes, we're not using those now, right? I want you to find this one, Classic Brush. Before we go further, does everybody have it on the toolbar? If you don't, can you please let me know? You could even use chat.
I think that was the same tool I used for my animation.
Is it?
Yeah,
It's a pretty cool tool. And, for the record, it works pretty nicely with drawing tablets. Some tools just love the drawing tablet and some don't. Some of them will let you change the angle of your pen to get different marks, like a calligrapher, like a graffiti artist, do all the great tricks with it. This I believe, is a pretty friendly one. I don't have my tablet on right now. Okay, I want to show you guys something about using this particular tool. Can you guys watch for a minute and then, in fact, join me? Let's say you drew a shape similar to mine. The trick is I want you to not close it. You see how there's a little gap? Now, is there anything wrong with that? There might be, because if your plan is to give it a color after, right, will it fill with color? So let's find out. Once you drew that with the brush tool, I'd like you to switch to the paint bucket. Pick a fill color. You could do that from here or from here. This is the paint bucket right here. And click inside. Nothing happens. Now what I'm going to do next to it is I'm going to draw a similar shape. Sorry, I'm going to go back to black. Right, so here's the paintbrush. It uses fills. I'm going back to black. Say I make a similar shape. But this time I cross this part. And then I get the paint bucket. Pick whatever color I want. And it fills. Now, I got to tell you something. That is hugely important. Hugely important. Is there anything I could do for that first one to make it fillable, even though it has a hole in it? Well, I could close it, right? So I'm going to get my black arrow here and see if it lets me take the end of this and pull it over. If that doesn't work, maybe I'll get my paintbrush and get the same color. But I really need to make absolutely sure that that's closed. Let's see. Paint bucket, pick a color, fill it. The moral of this story is we're going to have to get used to thinking in closed objects. You know, if you're drawing hairs on a head, maybe not. But if you're drawing a big shape for all the hair, you better close it. The second level is there are ways to close an object afterwards, and there's several. And I'm going to try several with you as we go through this semester. But the object does need to be closed. We're going to make a worm cross the stage. Now, we could do it as a line drawing, just line, in which case we don't care if it's open or closed. But if you think you're going to want to give it color later, you better be sure that every drawing's closed. You guys ready to try this with me? All right, if you want to join me, actually, you really need to join me, right? I'm going to get back to a useful size because I zoomed in. I'm going to select all, Command A, in a second there, press delete. Now I want you to watch this before you join me. So I'm going to try to get a very specific size going with that brush tool. And I'm going to make sure I close objects. I'm so zoomed out that I'd almost rather cross that edge to make sure that it's closed. Now, I'm going to undo this, but I want to point out I could fill it with the same color later if that's what I want. I'm going to Command Z. So I'm going to ask you to leave them open for right now, just for now. Could you draw something like that? Make sure it's not any bigger. Try to get as close to that size as you can. And while you do it, I want to talk to you. You know, to make that worm cross the stage, I have to figure out how a worm actually moves, right? How many steps there are. Because whenever an object moves, it repeats a cycle. So when you walk, right, one leg, then the other leg. So we know that there's at least two parts to that cycle. There's actually more, but at least. What's the essence of worm movement? It's all about that back being in the air. You know, when the worm pushes its back down, you know, flattens out, the head moves forward. And that's how it moves. So its back is up, it flattens out, the head goes forward. Then it arches again, flattens out, the head moves furthermore. So each time it's up, it pushes itself flat, so it goes forward. Then it up, flat, it's forward, up, flat, it's forward, up. That's the way it works. Theoretically, we can make this thing work with just two drawings, two ideas, the upworm and the downworm. If we wanted to be smoother, get all Disney about it, we would need intermediary steps. I think for right now, I'd like to start just with the two moves and see how it goes. The only thing is, he might look like he had way too much coffee, but we'll find out. All right. Now, you should have one worm. You're looking at the timeline. There's one black dot. That's a keyframe. All right. We need F6 like we did last week, right? So you remember most of us had to hold down the function key, the FN key, to get the second keyframe. Now guys, listen, this is only the second time we're doing anything like this, right? So forgive me to be extra thorough. The F keys are the top row. You see F1 all the way across to F12. The thing is, on laptops, for example, they do things like change the brightness and change the volume. We want them to act like the program. So a lot of computers have an FN key, often in the bottom left corner, sometimes the bottom right. The FN key. It's called the function key. When you hold it down, all the F keys will act like Adobe Animate or Photoshop if you're there, or Illustrator, but not doing brightness and volume. So if you need the FN key, use it. All right, so once you've F6, you should see a second keyframe on the timeline. Does everybody see the second keyframe? I'm talking about this down here. Now, what I'm going to, guys, I'm sorry. I need to ask you to Command Z with me. Apologies. That would have been a tough road. I got an easier road, right? Could you Command Z till you only have one keyframe again? We're just backing up one step. Check your timeline. I want to tell you what's on my mind. You see, if that worm was so perfectly designed, I could copy it, just drag sides of it to change its shape. But this tool isn't good at that, right? It would look like this. If I tried to do that on a later drawing, whoa, that's not helpful, right? So I changed my mind about doing it that way. Make sure you have one keyframe. Was anyone not able to back up? So all of you with your cameras off, except for the one person who doesn't have a camera, I'm mad at the rest of you. I get feedback from you.
They all, I made a list of the people whose cameras aren't working or not functioning and stuff, and I'm gonna send.
I'm gonna stop complaining about it, and we'll talk later, so I could be a little bit more kinder. All right, so I'm hoping you got one keyframe, guys. This is new. Last class, you copied the keyframe with F6, but what if copying it is not helpful? The next drawing is so different. Not like the ball that changed a little at a time. The next drawing is just completely different, right? So this is what I want you to do. Can everybody follow this with me? I'm going to do a couple new things. So if you need a challenge, here it is, right? I want you to go down to your timeline and notice the next frame. And I want you to go 2 frames over. So you got the black one, the next one's white, go to the third one. This is frame 3 that you're on. I want you to control click in it or right click in it so you get this menu and choose insert blank keyframe. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you could see this. You might want to do the same. If you notice this feature on the bottom, the slider might help. I'm zooming in on the timeline. This is the first frame that actually has a keyframe. That's my drawing. This is the second one that I skipped. This one I added a blank one. I'm going to Command Z so I could show you one more time. So there was the original drawing. I'm not going here. I'm skipping it. I'm going to the next one. This is frame by frame, but we call it by 2s. So we're going by 2s. So I'm going to come over here.
Yeah.
I'm going to control click in it.
That's only a thing.
Huh? Hold on, you can have those. Chrissy bought me and I do one of those shits. I'm like, yo, I had something downstairs.
Hey, Timothy, you can turn your mic off if you want. I don't mind. All right. All right. So you go to that third frame, you click in it, and you do insert blank keyframe. Why? Because you have to do the next drawing by hand. There's no use copying it. Last week, we tried onion skinning, and I have to include it now. All right. Next step, come to the bottom until you find this little double circle symbol called onion skin. It should be on the bottom. I think in some cases I've seen it right over the timeline. It's usually underneath it. We did this last week. So what onion skin does is it creates this little bracket on the timeline. It's showing you your new frame and the last bit of artwork. Watch what I'm going to do. Right? And I'll repeat this because this is good stuff. I'll get my paintbrush. I'm in the same color. The only difference is this time I'm drawing that worm further down and flatter. What's important to me is 3 things. That it is further along in front of the last one, and that he's flatter. The next one, he's going to be back up again. Up and down each time. I'm going to redo it, okay? I'm just going to redo it quickly, right? So I'm going to Command Z.
Could you also convert the strokes into shapes so that you
To
could...
tell you the truth, Joseph, I kind of wish that I'd used the pencil tool and not the brush. We could talk later on about how they differ, but I think what you're thinking would have been better with a different tool.
Mhm.
So right now, I'm just going to stick with this. So we've got the keyframe there, right? I'm going to the third, I'm skipping one. I control click or I right click to ask for a blank keyframe. By the way, the one above it is the same as F6. This actually means copy keyframe. I wish they didn't call it that, because people get confused. If you need a blank one to draw in, you have to choose it yourself. Insert blank. So you get a hollow circle, right? It's not black, it's hollow. So when I'm on it, I can't really draw yet because I need to see the last worm. That's why we're adding this feature at the bottom, onion skin. Once I got that set up, it's easier when I move forward. Watch this. I get my brush. I'm starting the tail a little bit further along. I'm going to Command Z that. I want to make them a little flatter. I'm going to then skip again, skip a frame, go to the 2 over. I'm back on the timeline, right? I control click, I say insert blank, showing me the last worm. This one needs a backup. So here comes the higher back. If you have to let go of your mouse pad or something, not really a problem, you know. As long as you make sure that you're really crossing lines there or touching them without a doubt, because we might want to fill it later. So you notice I'm going by 2s. I'm going back to the timeline. 2 over, asking for a blank keyframe. This one needs to be flat. I want to mention something if this is behaving for you and you're kind of liking it. There's one little feature you might prefer. You see this bracket? Watch this. The left side's got a blue line. The front is green. Leave the front. But with the back one, I could back it up so I see the last 2 drawings. It's really about where the tail end of the onion skin bracket is. That's just one. Depends what helps you. Maybe that big. I think I'm going to leave it set like that. So I can see 2 drawings at a time. It'll help me think. All right, I'm going to move forward. So here's the new one. I'm going 2 over. Control click or right click. Insert blank keyframe. I see the last 2 drawings. I need a high back. So I'm moving up. I'm going to exaggerate this. I'm going to let my drawing be a little messy right now. That's fine, you know, because I'm going to have to move quicker. Just want to show you, though, quickly, this is what I got. There he's going. Nice. Turning my onion skin back on. Now, I'm going to ask you to spend a few minutes, see if you could get him to cross the stage. Now, if this is breaking your heart, saying this takes so much patience, you might be in the wrong field. It does take incredible patience. Will we learn other ways to make this faster? Yes, but you have to know this as the fundamental background. Now, some of you guys did awesome homework, you know. I got bored of this assignment one day. I've done it many times. And I was like, what would it take to make the worm do a backflip? I've got it somewhere. If I find it, I'll show it to you. And it was kind of fun trying to imagine how a worm might do a backflip. You know, it's the same steps though. All right. So we're going to do this thing. We're going to finish this and then take a break. So here I am on my last drawing. I have to go 2 frames over and ask for a new blank keyframe since I'm doing this by hand. And I'm following that same pattern. If the last one had a high back, this one's going to have a lower back. Because as far as I could tell, that's how worms behave. I could always select it if I wanted to make small changes. But whenever I'm ready, I go 2 frames forward, make the next keyframe. After a while, you'll find your rhythm. Looks like I need a high back one. and you move forward. I'm going to talk in the background while you work. Once you got a few of these done, it gets easier and easier, right? Easier and easier. Try to keep them close because it'll make it easier if we want to put color in later. I'm going to add one little idea though. If that was a fast worm, right, he might be picking up speed. And if I want him to do that, right, I'm going to make him not go the same distance as the last two were. I'm going to have him go a little bit further along. Now, this is the distance I just went. If the next drawing beats that, it's a little bit longer than that, and the one after is a little bit longer than that, he's going to be zipping across. He went at an even speed, but just now I'm starting to increase that speed. So this is the distance of the last one. Look what I'm going to do now. I'm making my next keyframe. And if that was the distance and I want him to speed up, I'm going to go a little bit further. The human eye is going to explain this as acceleration, that he's speeding up. So bigger and bigger distances. This is going to be a mad dash at the end. That was a huge distance I just went. It's going to be a short animation, though I am coming up on a second. We only traveled that far. I'm going to go even further now. High back one. I keep making my worms too small, so you notice I'm cheating. I'm getting this tool. This lets me change size of things, and it also selects. So I'm selecting my stroke and fixing the sizes, and then just moving them further over into place. Making sure that this distance is big enough to make my point without losing it, without going crazy. And it looks like I've only got about one worm left of room. That was a huge distance. I'm going to go a similar distance. Just a little further. I'm currently hallucinating that I'm hearing the beach. Did anybody else hearing waves and stuff? I was raised.
Oh my God, that's me. I'm sorry.
It was very relaxing, Matthew.
It's my fan.
Oh, is it really? I'm from Rockaway Beach, so I'm like, wow, am I having like flashback types of thing? I don't know. All right, so here's the thing. Once you've crossed the stage, you should really turn off onion skinning. And you can play it by hitting return or enter. I'm going to wrap this part up. I want to say a little bit, and we're going to continue adding stuff to this right after the break. But I want to say some things. So it looks kind of old school. It reminds me of cheap 1970s animation, really. You know, the animation of the 50s and 60s, you know, was fairly smooth. And then, you know, like right around Hanna-Barbera, if you know the company, they did the Flintstones, for example. They started to try to pull things off with less artists. So they, if something had to be smooth like this, they could have done 4 different drawings. They would do 2. And so they looked a little rocky. They produced things faster in that period. The low ebb was the early Spider-Man cartoons, again, from that same period, in the 1970s. He would dance Spider-Man. He'd have one move like this and another move way over here. And it was like the weirdest looking thing you ever saw because they didn't want to bother with all of these drawings. So our worm looks a little like that. And if we repeat this, maybe next week, maybe we'll add in-betweens. So in between flat and arched, there'd be a halfway. And on the way down, that'd be much, much smoother, right? Okay. So for right now, this is all I want to say. If you want to preview it, I recommend previewing it right here in the program by hitting return or enter. If you'd like to hide this stuff off screen, this is a feature I'm really enjoying in recent Animate. There's this tiny button right next to this for the zooming. This here is clip contents outside the stage. So it looks a little bit more like what my audience is going to see. If you miss that and you want to do it, I'm just talking about this little button here. That will show me all the artwork, even off stage. This hides off stage. I think the best way to get satisfaction, though, some of you guys are smiling, so I guess it's going all right. What I want to do is I want to make it loop, you know, keep repeating, right? And I could do that right here. I don't have to make a GIF, right? So if you'd like it to loop, Control menu, loop. The next time you play, the next time, it's just going to keep on playing. All right. Does anybody have any questions about clip off stage or looping? So I want to say something to you. If your drawings are closed, again, I don't have a lot of drawings because he sped up at the end. See him dash at the end from about here? Woo. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I got about 12 drawings only. So if I wanted to give him a face, don't do that yet, okay? This stuff we should do first if you want to. I have to go to each of the 12 and add a face. I may add shadows in the background and other stuff. We'll see what we want to do with it right after the break. Any last questions about anything before the break? Okay, folks, it's 11 o'clock. We're doing fine. I want to give you, let's take a 20-minute break. We've just been through a lot together. At 11:20, I'm going to start again, right? So if you're taking off to make yourself breakfast, set a watch, you know, don't be late. I'm going to hit the ground running as soon as we get back, right? So I'd rather not have to review because somebody's toast took too long to toast, right? 11:20, I'll see you all then. Cool. Tiffany, let me just check in with you for a second before we break, you and I. I broke a promise, by the way. I'm so mad at myself. Ugh. I wanted to write your schedule down again on the handout. You know, I might actually add it and just post it right after the class, just so I don't keep forgetting. Is there anything else I need to know about, though? That you know about? You know, I know you've been chatting to help.
Nothing so far. I made a small list of some of the students whose cameras, who they told me that their cameras aren't working.
Oh, that's great. You know, I would appreciate that one as an email because the chats don't really help me.
So yeah, I sent you the names to the MMP260 email.
Perfect. That's perfect. All right, folks. See you at 11:20. Tiffany, you enjoy your break. Doesn't sound like there's last minute questions. I'll see you right after. We'll perfect our worm and head toward new technology in 20. I'm going to turn my camera off temporarily. Hey, guys. Ugh. Okay, we're going to start now. Oh,
Love the cat.
thank you. You know, I got to tell you something. My favorite thing about teaching online, a lot of people try to avoid, but I love seeing family pass by on the rare occasion. And, you know, somebody the other day had all these cool guitars on the wall of their house, you know, all this like human stuff. Anyway, this is my cat Andromeda. She's been on Zoom once before. She came to say hi. Okay. Let me let her out. There you go.
Yeah. Professor,
Yes.
I actually wanted to like say something like when you showed like that lecture on like that worm animation.
Yes.
It kind of reminded me of like something this interesting thing. One of my favorite animators. I'm not sure if you heard of him, but he's a very famous Japanese animator, director, and right now he owns his own studio.
Ghibli?
No,
Yeah.
it's this animator's name is Masaki Wasa, and he owns his own studio called Science Saru.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you. I don't think you heard of him. Have
Can you
you?
spell his last name for me?
Yuasa.
I
Yeah.
may look him up. I'm always interested in that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll say this, like his animation style is amazing and it's actually very noticeable, like even if it's like in a different art style, like you can definitely tell it's his animation.
Cool.
Like how in like a lot of animations from Japan, like they always like try to aim to be more realistic looking.
Mm-hmm. You know, I gotta say, my only issue that I have with contemporary Japanese animation is how much of it looks the same. Now, I really have a
What do you
big
mean?
problem with that. Well, you know, like the whole anime look, you know, which is so popular there and here. You know, what the original people I admire. I haven't seen a lot of the movies, but you know, Spirited Away, for example, which is a fabulous movie. But the amount of people imitating each other's style is offensive to me, to be honest with you.
Mm,
Because
I know that feeling.
even film houses like Warner Brothers, not everything looked like Bugs Bunny. You know, it wasn't one style. Hanna-Barbera, not everything looked like Fred Flintstone. Disney, everything looks like Disney. You know, in their 2D period and now their 3D period, but they're wildly repetitive. But they have that right. You know, it's one studio. This is what we do. But like everybody else coming in and like, how do you draw anime? That's just wrong. It really is. It's just
Yeah.
wrong.
You know what's so interesting about this specific animator though, Masaki Wasa. Yeah, the thing about him is like the rubber hose style animation. Yeah. He tries to he does like that similar kind of style in his animation. Like he always exaggerates expressions. He always
But we're gonna do some amount of that too.
struts out,
Yeah.
like
Squash and
stretches
stretch.
out perspectives.
Mhm.
He would even break anatomy just to.
I'll try to get a look at it. I take a note. So listen, guys, I do want to say a couple things to everybody, a little bit connecting to what Jataro's saying, but really coming back to the techniques we used for the worm, right? So remember the first time we met, we got a look at Gertie the dinosaur, right? And between last week and this week, it's pretty clear how you would do that, you know, in Adobe Anime, how you would do that kind of thing. Now, last week, I focused more on a lot of F6. Now, you might remember the whole thing with the ball, and then it was. Now, the advantage, and I may do a demonstration of that if there's time today. The reason we were able to copy the last artwork instead of blank keyframe, right? So right now I'm comparing F6, which usually means copy the last keyframe, to insert blank keyframe. So sometimes it's easier to copy the last keyframe and adjust the artwork. Sometimes it's easier just to draw the artwork. Now, really with the worm, to tell you the truth, even if we had started with a different tool, it was just too different in the different positions of the body. Just too different to bother copying it at all, right? The only way I could have imagined pulling that off would have been the neatest worm. Those of you who might know anchor points, with the fewest anchor points, so I could adjust it just by the use of anchor points, a very formal way to do it. But with any kind of freehand style, for this type of object, it was just better to redraw it. And onion skinning was what we had to help. So it's always like a question, when do you copy the last keyframe and when do you make your own? And I'd like to go over that, but I want to get back to our worm before we diverge, before we go elsewhere. So the worm right now, and, am I screen sharing? No, I'm going to screen share. And you know, mine's probably no better than most of yours, right? It's made its point, right? It's very simple, right? Very, very simple. I want to show you guys something that I love to show. I want to show you something online for a minute, so bear with me. I want to mention an animator who's incredibly famous and more famous with my generation, perhaps, than yours. He draws and his drawings are famous, but his animations got huge, both stories as well as advertising. And when I was a little kid, this guy was already the king in advertising. It's unbelievable to me that he's still plugging away all these years. And his drawings are so crude. They're so simple. You're like, how did he get that famous? And the one reason is they're consistent and they have charisma. Now look, guys, I got to say something about charisma because it's very hard for us to talk about, right? But you go to a party and some people are friendly and some are not. And sometimes somebody walks in and a whole fuss starts. You know, it's like, why? What's different about them? They've got charisma. And you could say later, well, they're funny or friendly or whatever, good looking. I don't know why. It's hard to say. You know, I'm not a big fan of our current president, but for a lot of people, it's just about charisma. They like his behavior. They don't care about the rest. What creates charisma? This guy's got it, this animator. I want to show you something by one thing by him, maybe we'll do it to make my point. They're frame by frame animations. Let me, give me a second here. And I'm going to just pick one. I'm going to, let's see. Here's a famous one that I like to share. Uh-oh. He's got a saw. Merry Christmas. So this had 500,000 views. 500,000 views. So I want to say something about it just real quickly. That whole thing is a minute long, a 1 minute thought, a very, very simple idea, charismatic, very simply drawn birds, right? All expressed by some probably classical musicians, right? You know, some mostly strings, I believe, maybe a wind instrument in there. And the threat comes, you know, the guy with the saw, but he's not threatening. He wants to jam. He wants to play. But the drawings were so simple, were they not? So simple. I think if you passed by someone's desk and they had one of those drawings on their desk, you probably wouldn't say, wow. But maybe if they had 10, you'd be like, there's something to it. But once it builds into a world, it's just about the charisma, the sheer magic of taking a ride in Bleckman's world, R.O. Bleckman. He's really worth looking up in terms of simplicity. You might notice also that was all line drawing, right? So he didn't care about fill colors or anything like that. He had a very simple style. And I only bring it up now because we're going to try all kinds of different options that will open doors toward an emerging style for you or multiple styles for you, right? Because we're not copying anybody. And again, I'm not going to really be very supportive of people who want to draw like Disney, unless your whole life you want to work there. That's different. You know, you want to work for Studio Ghibli or do the next Totoro, then you could draw like that, you know. But other than that, you should just be open to discovery, and that's how all the best artists started. Anyway, so about our worm, like I said, if we were going to do it again, I wouldn't just have 2 poses. What we created was a cycle. And the cycle's a 2-pose cycle that just kept repeating. But if we had made it, say, a 4-pose cycle, so there's one in between on the way up and another in between on the way down, it would have looked much, much smoother, right? So that's like an option for anyone who wants to play with on their own. It's a really good exercise. Let's see what we could do with what we have, right? So let's get back to animate. Mine's playing, so I'm gonna hit return to stop it. I'm also gonna turn off the clip screen thing. I wanna see the worm off stage too. So I'm pressing this button up top so I can see it. I wanna take on for a short time here, can we fill the worm or not? And I gotta warn you, if we had a lot to do, so you might not have been too careful about closing it. Let's see how it goes. I wanna talk up the paint bucket. So go to your timeline, notice that this blue bar, which is called the playhead, can be moved by hand. You just grab it and move it. Can you take it back to frame 1? Now, here's the paint bucket. Now, I want to tell you something kind of convenient. The brush tool used your fill color. It paints like fill, like a painter thinks. And so does the paint bucket. So if you want it to look like it's one color, we could use the paint bucket to fill, and it's already got the right color. So this is what I'm saying. Here's the paint bucket. If it isn't the right color, click it and bring this little eyedropper right over here. Choose the color. Unless you want a different color, that's okay too. You can pick a different color if you want. All right, you're on frame 1. You got the paint bucket. You chose either the same color or a different color, fill, and you click inside. Now, if that didn't work, what you probably want to do is select what you have and zoom in. I used Command plus just now. Is there a gap? And if there's a gap, I would probably get your paintbrush and fix it, and then get the paint bucket to fill it. Now, if that worked, it's going to go quickly. You want to go to the next keyframe. I want to say a couple quick things. So only the black dots have artwork in them, right? So that means only the black dots will let you edit and change your mind about what you have. So there's 2 ways to skip between the keyframes. I want to show you something new. So if you'd have a look for a minute. On the same control bar where you found onion skinning before, are these 2 little arrows? This steps between keyframes. So I could manually click keyframes myself, no big deal. But I could use the next keyframe button. And that might be pretty convenient. So what I'm going to do is, here's the beginning. I'm going to the next keyframe. I already got the bucket. I click. Next keyframe, click. And I'm going keyframe by keyframe, and I'm filling them. And the only reason I'm doing it now is because it was easier to do the drawings without it. It's not always going to be true, but given the steps we chose, that I chose, it's easier afterwards. Paint bucket is a great thing to fill closed shapes. Now look, if your shapes aren't closed, don't beat yourself up. Please don't. Hang on a second there. Next time, you'll close them. I want to say something. Kayla, were you the one who, or was it Callista? Both the K's. One of you did some shading on your character early on, and I don't know if any of you guys noticed it, but in any case, down the road, I'm going to show you techniques where we could shade that worm, you know, make it feel rounder by shading it, right? I think it's too early for that because I need to do more movement today, right? But we will get to that. And that will also depend on your objects having been closed. So we're going to lean very heavily on closed objects. Does anyone have any questions for me about this or the paint bucket? Let's take it a little further. Guys, I wanted to introduce layers today. I'm going to use this opportunity to do it. So could everybody stop your animations if necessary? We're going to take a big step together. 1 second there. You know, judging by the homework, I think a few of you knew about layers already. I think you're all going to really like it. It's going to also help Jacob with some of the questions he asked earlier about protecting the separate objects. So you notice these will all merge the worm, right? I didn't go into object mode at any point in time, but I don't have to worry about destroying the worm because look what we're gonna do. All right, everybody take a look at the timeline and notice that you're on a layer called layer 1. Could you double click the word layer 1 and call it worm? Now, I gotta tell you in advance, you guys are gonna have a lot of layers as you move through your career, right? And you may be working on a team for very elaborate animations. This could be a lot of layers. Now, we need a new layer. So if you look on the timeline, there's a bunch of tools, including a plus sign, simple plus sign. I want you to click it once. Then, I want you to change its name. It's called layer 2. I want you to double click that and call it background. Now, I want to show you guys something quickly before you join me on this next step. Each layer is like a piece of glass in front of the last, right? So right now, the new layer is in front of the worm, which is going to make a terrible background, right? So could you guys watch this for a second? I'm switching over to the rectangle tool, and I'm picking a color that I'm going to use for the ground. And I'm going over the new keyframe. And I'm not out here because that's confusing. I'm over the new keyframe. This is not going to look good. Now, I'm not worried about it, right? Didn't damage my worm. It's on a whole other layer. I could just drag the layer down to the bottom. And that's actually what I wanted. So let me do that in a smarter way, though. Did everybody make their new layer, their background layer? If not, you click this little plus sign and make the new layer. Double click the name to call it background. Now, what I suggest you do before you draw the background is simply press on that layer anywhere you want and pull it down so it's under the worm. Now, everything you draw is going to be behind the worm, right? If we add new layers in front of the worm, we could put trees and rocks and things in front of the worm. But right now, we're working behind the worm. The bottom is actually the back. Okay, so make sure you're on the background layer. Make sure you're over the first keyframe, not out here, back here, and get your rectangle tool. Pick a color. Now you could either do that from here or from the properties palette, provided it says tool. Mine is on the wrong place for some reason. Either place, and I want you to pick a color. Don't get too dark because I'd like to add a shadow to it. So I'm finding something, you know, not too dark. You could put that anywhere you want. All right, I'm going to use the same layer and create a sky. You know, by the way, it is tempting to go into object mode for this. So I could change the shape of the ground and the sky without it bothering anything nearby. But I'm not going to do that. All right? I'm going to stick in merge mode for the rest of today. So you got your rectangle tool. Can you switch to a color for the sky? Any color you want. It doesn't really have to be a blue sky, right? It could be any color you want. And I want you to cover up that area. Now let them overlap so you don't accidentally have a white space. I'm going to let them overlap. I want to show you something interesting about your layers. If I hide the worm layer, I could focus kind of easily just on the background. How do you hide a layer? Okay, you hide layers. Hang on a second, just moving stuff around for a minute. My computer just got, there we go. You hide layers by going to the layer you want to hide. So let's go to the worm layer for a minute. And there's a little crossed out eye on that layer. If you click it, that layer alone is hidden. Not this big crossed out eye. That'll hide all the layers. Don't want that. I'm going to click it again. But any layer you want to temporarily hide, you just poke it in the eye if you have the need. I'm going to focus on the lower layer for a minute. Watch this strange behavior. Get my black arrow. Look at this. Isn't it interesting that the yellow shape and the green shape are changing? Weren't they just two different shapes? It's pretty interesting. You think I'm just moving the green, but I'm not. There was never yellow down here. That yellow is actually moving with me. Hey, Joseph, this is your conscience. Joseph, you're okay in my book, but you were passing out. Maybe you need the window open or something. Okay, what I'm pointing out right now is even though you had two objects on that layer, you got some kind of freedom about working with their shapes. I could probably get more freedom if I switch to the white arrow, but I don't want to do that right now. Whenever you're ready, if you want to show your worm again, find the little eye and click it. It's getting better. Does anybody have any questions about those layers? No. I want to just mention one more thing. I want to get back to our background layer, really. But you don't have to hide a layer just to protect it. You could lock it. So again, Jacob, well, you asked such a good question before about merging, not merging. And I was saying there's a lot of solutions. One of my favorites is when things are on their own layers, I just lock the layers. Now that goes a far way protecting your artwork. So let's lock it. The worm layer, if I click here, I get a little padlock. So this big padlock here would lock the whole thing. Again, I don't want that, so I'm going to click it again. I just want to lock that one layer, and you'll see the padlock stays there. At this stage, I can't touch the worm. No matter what I do, I'm moving the wrong stuff. So that's okay, the worm is protected. All right, I'd like you to lock the worm layer, go to your background layer, and I want to show you something pretty cool. You guys hanging in there? It's a long class. I was hoping that the break would help. So the worm's protected. I'm leaving him alone. I'm going to the background layer. Please go to the background layer also. Now, I want to put a shadow underneath that worm. Now I have two choices. I could actually draw over my green floor, a little bit dangerous, but simple. Or I can make a layer just for the shadow, right? Now I'm not going to do that, but if you want to do that, you can. Just make sure your shadow layer is between the worm and the background. I'm going to stick with the background layer. All right, I'm going to get the paintbrush tool again. And what I'm going to do is, remember it uses fill colors. I got my paintbrush. I'm going to click here and choose a color for the shadow. So I have a green floor. The shadow would still be green or greenish. So I'm going to look for like a darker green. On another day, we'll talk about mixing our own colors. We just can't do everything in one day. I'm just going to try it real quickly. I think that color is going to work for me. Thing is, I don't like the brush mark. I'm going to draw a shadow with that. So I got the brush tool. I'm on the lower layer. I'm over frame 1. You pick your fill. Now, I want to do a couple other things. I want to change the size of the brush. Here is an 18 pixel brush, but I actually want a really big brush. That's more my style. That's 70 pixels there. I'm going to actually back up just a little. I keep Command Z. Maybe a little smaller. You'll see why in a minute to help you make your own decision. I want to mention though, I might also want to change the brush shape. So I want to say something. There are other ways to get it even more brushes. Well, right now I want to start here. These are the basic brush shapes. This is like a calligraphy brush. Because if I go this way, it's thick. But if I go this way, it's thin, thick, thin. So that's kind of interesting. Do I want that? I think I need a round brush for what I want to do. I'm going to stick with an all-round brush, change my mind. I'm going back where I started. Watch this. All right, I lock the worm layer. The worm is safe. Here's my lock, right? I'm on the background layer over frame 1. So this arch of my worm, right, would have an opposite shadow. right? It's gonna go the opposite way. So watch this. I think I need to be a little smaller. Sorry guys, I'm a picky guy. What can I tell you? That should do it. Watch this. Hey, why are you going over the worm, Ira? What's up with that? Once I let go, voila, right? Because I'm on a lower layer. I'm gonna skip to the next keyframe. Now here's the problem. I don't have a next keyframe on the lower layer, right? Look, all empty. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go right beneath the next worm, make a keyframe for the shadow. Remember, insert blank keyframe. There it is, right? And don't worry about, oh gosh, I take it back, guys. I just made a terrible mistake. Can't really draw the shadows there like this, because I need a keyframe to draw the shadow in, but it's gonna break the background. I apologize. Those of you who made a shadow layer, you're smarter than your teacher. Those of you who followed me, could you Command Z until your shadow's gone? I got a better way. Command Z till you got no shadow. I should have done it. I thought I was gonna save us steps, but I wasn't, right? It's smarter to do the shadow on its own layer. Okay, we need a third layer. So I'd like you to click the new layer button. We're gonna use this a lot. If it didn't go in the middle, just drag it to the middle. Let's rename it shadow. There are other ways we could do this, but I honestly think this is gonna be the better one. Frame 1 always has a keyframe, and it kind of fooled me. So I'm gonna use the first one, and then I'm gonna have to make my own after that. So here I go, I'm back. I could lock the other 2 layers if I wanna play it safe, top and bottom. I'm on the middle layer. I'm over the new frame. Here I go. 1 second there. All right, brush tool. Shadow. I'd rather not outline it and fill it, so I made the brush just the right size. I don't mind if you do it differently, but this is a quick way. I'm gonna go on the correct layer, the shadow layer, right underneath the next worm, and create a blank keyframe. This is a flat worm. The shadow is gonna be fairly flat also. Fine. I drag my playhead over to the next worm, but I have to make a new keyframe on the correct layer. Insert blank keyframe. So each time I'm protecting the other 2 layers. On my layer, I'm putting a keyframe right where there's a worm. This is an arched worm again, so I'm going to make that shadow a kind of reverse shape. The brush is merging with itself, so I could adapt that shadow. How are you guys? Is it working? Look, if it's working, you work through your own timeline, right? If it's helpful to look at mine, then look at mine. I'm done, so I go to the next one. Right underneath it, I'm going to make a blank keyframe on the shadow layer. You know what I'm going to do? It's a flat worm. It's going to have a fairly flat shadow, just a little bit. And I'm going to move to the next worm. Each time I make a new blank keyframe for the drawing, everything before it on the layer disappears, right? Because this new spot thinks I want new artwork. F6 wouldn't have helped us much today. Not so far. And I keep going to the next one. On the correct layer, I make my blank keyframe. And I make my shadow. Go on to the next one. Blank keyframe on the correct layer. Right, a lot of repetition. So each time I go on, kind of estimating the kind of shadow. Don't forget to make the blank keyframe though. Otherwise, I'm just going to ruin the last shadow. Insert blank keyframe. I make my blank keyframe. Oh, I already did I? No, I did not. There I go. Insert my blank keyframe. Hollow circle. So the keyframes are the only place you could draw. They take a little bit of thought. There's a few things that I like about having these separate layers intact. I could change anything that I want, especially the background layer, because there's just very little artwork there right now. I'm going to stop it to prove that point. If I wanted to change the background, I have to go to frame 1, because that's where it lives. The drawing's in this keyframe. I'd unlock it. I'd click whatever it is that I want to change with the black arrow. So I'm just going to the layer where the artwork lives. I'm going to the keyframe where the artwork lives. If I want to change anything, I'll select it, and I'll figure out what I want to do with it. I really am kind of like looking for something, but not finding precisely what I want. I don't know why, but I like that a little more. Any questions at all? How many of you guys are feeling okay or better about your worm animation? You could give me a thumbs up. You could use the reactions feature on our Zoom control bar. How many people hate their worm? Good, I'm glad. No haters, a lot of neutral people. 4 people thumbs up, no thumbs down, lots of quiet people. You know, I can't force screen sharing, but I really do wish I could. I would be skipping around screens. It just takes so long each time we do it. To do a class show, I have to collect the work to make it feasible. No questions at all? All right, look, you know, I do want to get to a different subject, but why not see what it would take to give this worm a face? You know, because it really isn't that hard. And honestly, in this case, I don't need keyframes, and I don't need a new layer, because the worm layer's got everything I need. I want to show you what I mean. Let me make this bigger. And I'm going back to frame 1. I'm going to lock the other layers and unlock the worm. So here's my worm. I'm on his layer. He's not locked. And I'm going to stick with the brush tool today. And I'm going to draw a very simple eye and a face and a smile. Just an eye and a mouth. So I'm going to pick the color that I want. And I'm over the first frame. That's important. And I'm going to draw myself. Oh, sorry. I got to go to that layer. So I was on the background layer without noticing. So I'm going to the top layer just like that. One click. I'm over frame 1. I got a brush that's way too big for what I want to do. Guys, listen, I'd like to keep things simple, but I guess they're just not all that simple. My brush wasn't showing up because my properties palette was way out here. I had to choose the brush. If I'm not seeing what I want, this little button here that says Tool is what you'll need. I'm going to make a much smaller brush for the face. I'm going to go to the next keyframe. Now, the beauty of this is that the keyframes are already there on that layer. So I don't have to make them because they're already there. I'm not even using onion skinning because the eye is going to believe this. If he was making complex expressions, like some of the homework did, I would turn on onion skinning. But even if I wanted him to start frowning, I could do it. I'll go into some kind of neutral face. And make it progressively unhappy. At this point, he looks like he needs some teardrops, but I'm not going to go there. Maybe he's getting happy again for some reason. I don't know. I'm not going to bother with the one that's off stage. Quite a bit better. All right, I'm just going to say some things, even if you're still working on that. I just want to mention some stuff. You know, it's only the third class today, and some of you heard me come on kind of strong about anime styles and Walt Disney styles and pre-existing styles. I don't want you to think I'm trying to sell what this looks like to you as a style. I chose the worm because we could do it quickly. I could focus on techniques that you need and large concepts. You know, if we spent the entire day drawing a dragon for this, we would get absolutely nowhere in the class. So the somewhat crude kind of look is only in the interest of getting us the time we need to cover stuff that's you might not learn otherwise. If you want to keep your worm, to continue it, or just to keep a record of what you've done, I would save it now. So I'm gonna just go quickly save it, say a couple words about saving. I'm doing File menu, Save, plain old save. I'm gonna give it the brilliant name Worm. I have others, so I'm gonna call this one Worm Fall 2020. And you could save it on your desktop. You could save it in documents, but if you have a really good folder for it, you might want to use that. I'm actually going to type .fla here. Guys, I do want to say one thing about the .fla part. I'm a Mac guy, and Mac people are used to showing their extensions all the time. .jpg for JPEG, .psd for Photoshop, you know, on and on. .doc or docx for Microsoft Word. I know on Windows, it often hides the extensions. So I'm trying to get used to it and come up with good advice and all of that. It's hard for me to do that because I don't have Windows at home. You know, I was getting the hang of it when Tiffany and I were in the labs. I was starting to get used to it. But, you know, right now I don't want to stop. Don't worry too much about the extensions for now, .fla. I may come back to that subject though. I'm going to save mine to the desktop. Click Save. Guys, I want to include some new material, but I want to show you something that's kind of fun. And one of you asked about it last week, and I kind of ignored it. There's a file type called SWF. It's actually .swf. And it used to be the #1 popular file type for animation on the web. When Flash ruled, the parent of Animate, right? It produced SWF files, .swf. And one reason it was so popular was programmers could program the SWF. So you could program your rocket ship to know if it was going to hit, if it hit an asteroid. And you would say, if you hit the asteroid, play the explosion animation. So you'd program it. So it was great for games. And the SWF was the popular output file. Now that stuff has a dark history. Everything went very, very wrong. And it's one of the reasons why Flash doesn't exist anymore. So people don't like the SWF as much. But there's two reasons why I want to show you a SWF. One is I've been told that some other programs that take this artwork in, like Swifts for importing. I don't know that that's really true because I haven't tried it. But I would try it in After Effects. I don't know, I might try it even in a 3D program and see what I can do there. I don't know. But the other reason is it just makes a great preview. Let's try it out. So just make sure you're inside of Animate. You're looking at you got your worm there. Could everybody try on a Mac, Command Return. If you're on Windows, Control Enter. Now, really, this isn't any different than what we saw inside of Adobe Animate. But if you look at the gray bar, you'll see it says .swf. Doesn't say FLA, that's the original. And it doesn't say GIF because we didn't make a GIF. Swifts always loop, so it's looping. They always look perfect. The cool thing about them is they scale, right? So, you know, we'd have to play with it a little bit to get it scaled the way I want. But you notice it gets bigger without losing any image quality. The offside stuff we'd have to deal with. So Command Return on a Mac, Control Enter on Windows. I want to say a little bit more, but I want to ask you something. Did it work? Everyone stop smiling. Is this class too long? Maybe I should make it a shorter class. I have the power now to do that. I don't like it, but they gave me the power. Never had that before. Somebody say something. Did it work? Daniela, you look friendly. Did it work?
Yeah, the
Are you on a Mac or Windows?
Windows.
So am I right that it's Control Enter?
It worked for me.
Right. Hey, Tiffany, Windows doesn't even have a return key, am I right? Does it have return? Or
They have Enter.
they just have Enter. Okay, that's good to know. All right, so folks, wherever you save that FLA, there's a .swift there. So if you've been saving to your desktop, you just added something to the desktop. All right, I want to move forward. Give me 1 second. I'm going to take a peek at my handout. All right, we went over strokes, all kinds of stuff with strokes. Then we kind of left them behind. We did a bunch of onion skinning and layers for the worm exercise. I've got something that's kind of much easier, in some ways less powerful, in some ways more. But it's an introduction to tweening that I want to get busy with right now. This is not hard, right? So if you're like, give me something easy, you deserve it. But it's a different way to look at things. We've been going frame by frame. And this, as I mentioned, is the original. Now, I'll admit, just now we went by twos, right? But it's still called frame by frame. You know, by the way, if we hadn't skipped frames, your worms would be crazy fast. You know, it would have been psycho worm, right? So we went by every other frame. What I want to show you now is tweening. Now, here's the idea with tweening. You have a keyframe that represents your object. 10 frames later, 20, 30, however many, you have a keyframe that represents your object somewhere else, right? In between, the computer figures it out. Now, we call that tweening. 20 years ago, tweening meant you gave the new guy the job of drawing the tweens. The experienced person drew Bugs Bunny in the woods, and he drew the one on the other side of the woods, and the tweener had to figure out how to do the running. Now the computer does it. Now the thing is, it only does very simple tweens. We're talking about shaped tweens. Let's try it. All right, if you want to use your worm again, make sure you've saved it. I'd like for everyone to do File Menu, New. We're going to stick with the same size and the same frame rate, 24, and click Create. All right, guys, we're going to start simply. You're looking at a new stage, one layer with one keyframe, and I need for you to do exactly this. Please don't improvise the first time. I want you to get the rectangle tool. I'd like you to pick a fill color for it. If you want, you could add a stroke. I'm not going to do that. And what I want is a rectangle about this big, just off stage on the left. By the way, the reason I do a lot of stuff just off stage, right, is it's very convincing if it passes by. And if you're going to loop, it's really convincing about it coming round and round. If you started completely on stage, the loop never makes much sense, right? So, just saying. All right, you have your rectangle? Well, 24 frames down, you see the 1 second mark. That's not really enough time. So I'm going to ask you to go to frame 36 and put a blank keyframe there. Now, naturally, you can't see the prior artwork. If we want, we turn on onion skinning, but I don't even need it. The choice is yours right now. I'm going to keep it off. What I want in the new keyframe, and I'm going to do this twice, is an oval of a different color. I'm picky. And I'm going to put it about here. So really what I was looking for is roughly on the same line, but the new shape's on the right side. What you should be seeing on your timeline is frame 1 has a keyframe that's black because there's artwork there. Down the timeline in frame 36, roughly, another keyframe that's black. If your onion skinning is on, please turn it off. So in frame 1, there's just a rectangle. And if I played it, suddenly it looks a little bit like it animated at that last minute, but that's just because the eye is stubborn. It wants to make sense of things, even if they don't make sense. What we want to do is turn on the tweening. All right, let's stop for a minute. Most of this semester are kinds of tweening. We mix it with frame by frame, but it's going to lean on tweening. There are 3 kinds of tweening you're going to learn with me. This is the first. All right. On your layer, click anywhere between this keyframe and this one. Anywhere between them. Right? So it doesn't matter where. Anywhere between them. Then control click. I want you to notice, or right click, these 3 options. The only one that's going to work for us today is shape tween. I want to send up a flare. Don't accidentally use classic yet or motion. They're not going to work. Shape tween. Now, if that worked, you're seeing something kind of interesting right away. Wherever you clicked has got an intermediary shape. It's not a rectangle. It's not a circle. It also has an intermediary color, right? It's whatever the color wheel shows in between the 2 colors of your objects. Believe it or not, color theory is a real thing. So if I had a yellow object turning into a red one, it would be orange in the middle. To test it though, bring your playhead back to the beginning and simply hit return. Did it work? So I want to go over it one more time, and then I want to add a bunch of stuff, right? I'm going to try to let people out early today because I'm sure you deserve it, but we have to go just a little bit further. Hey, Harold, did you have a question? Your box lit up for some reason. Tiffany, do we know if Harold's mic works?
I'm not sure. No, well, he's typing. He said sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Nothing to be sorry about. Okay. Folks, let's open up a new document, all right? I know that most of you got it, but probably not as much as you think. Let's repeat it just one more time before we add stuff. I want to bring layers into it, but for now, let's just do File Menu New, start over. New document, File Menu New, same size, same everything, especially the frame rate. All right, get that rectangle tool, and pick a color. I'm going to put a yellow rectangle over the edge there. Now, you can't go ahead and draw the next shape. It's the #1 mistake. We're thinking in time. At the beginning of the movie, this thing's a rectangle, but as time passes, it moves, changes color, and location. It's called shape tween, but it also changes color and location in time. So the next step has got to be to choose how long it's going to take. I want to go to 35 again, right? And control click, because you have to make your own keyframe. This way it knows you don't want the prior work. You're going to draw something new at this point. All right, switch to a different shape, and I highly recommend the oval. I'm going to make a red oval. I could turn on onion skinning just to see, you know, what the last shape looks like. It's an option, but I'm going to turn it off before I go further. So even before you turn the shape tween on, it may be a good idea to test. That yellow object, my rectangle, lives all the way through the timeline, and it doesn't change till the very last frame. Boop. Once you know, you got bookends. That's what I call it, right? Bookends. The first one, frame 1 or whatever frame. The last one, downriver, right? We went 35 frames. They're both black. You know, the artwork's in the right places. Then you're free to go in between them. And again, anywhere in between, control click or right click. Control click on a Mac, right click on Windows. And be sure you're choosing shape. All right, we're going to add to this, but I want to make a point. If any of you are really into color, and I said to you, what's between yellow and red? Would you know? Tiffany knows.
What?
I can lip read. No, I can't, but I saw that. Orange. Yeah, and she's right. This is a yellow object. This is a red object. So smack middle, it's orange. It's just passing through the color wheel. All right, now I need honest reactions. I want to see either physical thumbs up or down or the reactions button, emoji thumbs. Did it work?
Professor?
Yes, ma'am.
On the second one, it didn't work. The first time I did it with the other file, it worked fine, but on this one it's kind of weird. When I press play, it sort of turns into the
You know what?
oval.
Why don't you show me? I'd rather you show me. Hey, listen, all those thumbs that went up, thanks for sharing it with me. I know people are very shy when things don't work, but follow Matthew's example. He's going to get the help he needs. So, Matthew,
I'm gonna have to turn it to the screen.
What's that?
I'm gonna have to turn my phone to the screen. I'm not using the computer. Yeah.
But I need to see. Oh, I see what you're going to do. You're going to use it like, we'll try it. All right. Yeah.
Give me 1 sec.
I don't know if this is going to work, especially because you got the fancy background on. It makes stuff like this hard.
Hold on. Wait, I still have to.
Huh. Matthew. All right, let's see. Maybe this is.
I still need to share the content, but you're using
no way.
it.
This isn't going to work, my friend. I'm sorry. I just can't get a good enough look for this. I can barely see the tools or anything. This is what I'm going to ask you to do. Guys, listen, if you all found this easy, right? I want to do one quickly, right? And Matthew, just join me on a new one, all right? Forget that one then, right?
Okay.
Right? All right, everybody, open up a new document, please. Same as the last one. File menu new. All right, you got one layer. You already have a keyframe in frame 1 because that happens by default. I'd like for you to put a rectangle about here. I'm pretty sure he went wrong with the next step, right? Because this is where everybody makes the same mistake mostly. You must make the blank keyframe before you do the second drawing. If it was going to be fast, it would be 10 frames over. That's less than half a second. Too fast. This is a whole second. 1 Mississippi. I wanted to go out to frame 35, about a second and a half before it arrives. You have to make the blank keyframe here. You know, if you did that right, the screen just went blank because the other object lives before then, but the blank keyframe is asking for new artwork. Be sure your playhead is over that new keyframe before you draw the next object.
Hear that?
Somebody looking for me?
Sorry, I thought I heard like a.
I heard that. I don't know what that was. Small UFO landing. All right, in any case. So really, you need to see when you click on frame 1 that there's one piece of artwork there. When you click on that keyframe you made on the right, there should be one piece of artwork there. If you ever see them both at once, with no onion skinning on, you made a mistake. Then you go in between them. Control click or right click, and turn on shape tween. As long as the ends are correct, the shape tween should work. Matthew, how's that going?
Yeah, I got it. I
You
think
got
I
it?
did. I think I got what I did wrong.
And you know what? There's nothing wrong with it. You know, sometimes fixing it's the best idea, sometimes doing a new one is. The steps are very consistent. I want to show you some crazy stuff with shape tweening this morning, easy stuff, but really interesting. But I want to say something to you. It's the easiest of the 3 kinds of tweening, but not the most powerful. So I want us to get a handle on this so that I could move to the next style next week, the next technique, which is really what I want to do, right? We'll see if that works out. But I want to show you what's to like about this. Well, for one, it's the only kind of tweening that will change shape. They all change color. They all change location, where the object goes. So they could all do movement, but they don't change shape. Size, yeah, that they do. Rotation even, but not flat out shape. All right, so this is what I'd like to show you. I hope everybody has one working one. If you want to go ahead with me and they didn't all work, pick the tab of the one that worked. I'm going to stick with this one. Before I show you something new, I want to say another color thing. Red on the left, blue on the right. It had to be purple in the middle. Purple is made out of red and blue. So by the time it reached the middle, it was half made of red and half the blue. So it was purple. Then it got bluer and bluer as it headed toward the other keyframe. Very interesting. By the way, if you had a yellow ball and you threw it into an all red room, it wouldn't be yellow anymore. In the red room, it would be orange. Okay, any case. All right, everybody, could you go to frame 1? This is easy and incredibly cool. Frame 1. I'd like you to get the black arrow and go to the edge of your shape. Oops, hang on a second there. Carefully, and change the edge. If you accidentally move it, just Command Z, deselect it by clicking off, and then make a couple of very small changes, nothing big. After you made your small changes, play it. Well, how cool is that? So it actually knows that you changed the shape, the whole tween updated without you having to do it. That's incredible, incredible. Let's make 2 other changes. Shape is cool. You could move the location and change the color. So I'm going back to frame 1 because that's the only place that artwork lives. I'm going to take this object and move it to the floor. I'm also going to change its color. Then I'm going to play it. Interesting, right? Okay, let's try that experiment on the right side object, right? The one that's currently in frame 35 or wherever you put it. So wherever your playhead might be, I want you to get all the way to the end where the second keyframe is. There's only 2 keyframes. Click that object. Well, if you want to change its shape, you got to click off of it. If you want to change its color, you got to click on it. You could change its location too. So remember where your first object is. And if it ever helps you turn onion skinning on whenever you want, remember there's a little bracket here if you need it. So you could choose what you want to see by playing with this bracket. That's never going to be part of your animation though, so don't fall in love with it. It's just to help you think. I'm going to turn my onion skinning off. You could play it. So there's something I want to point out about this one. Remember early today, I gave a little speech about what is a strong shape? And while I couldn't tell you what makes a strong shape, I did tell you that you know in your gut, when you're honest, if it's a strong shape or not. I want to show you something. I'm going frame by frame. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But the shape is still kind of strong. I'm getting to have some doubts, but it's still sort of interesting at this stage. But I got to admit, I'm just not sure of it in here. It doesn't have any authority. I'm not really all that happy with it. I don't know. Maybe I'm being picky. But it just feels kind of weak. You know, that last third of its journey is a little disappointing. So all I could say about that is I don't have a great way to make it look better. Not really, you know. And I kind of knew I was in trouble because of the changes I made at the beginning and the end. Shape tweening is not that smart. You know, it takes the most obvious way to get from one shape to the other. But if the stages in the middle look bad, you just got to let go of it. You know, you got to do something else. You know, it's limited, so we can't become addicted to it. One more thing. You can't do rotation with a shape tween. I want to show you what happens if you try, and you could join me on this if you like. This shape here, I could rotate, or this shape. I'm going to choose my second one. And I mentioned this tool, but very quickly. This tool here is going to be a big friend of ours. It's called Free Transform. It lets you select, but it also scales to make things big and small, and rotates. So I'm going to take this object here. To rotate, you come just outside a handle. Not on it. That's scale. Just outside of a handle, you could rotate. So this object was something like that a minute ago, and now it's like this. I'm going to play the movie. See, the thing about it is, it didn't look like the object was turning on the way, right? It has no idea that there's a proper orientation for these shapes I'm making. So it just goes from the current shape to whatever it sees in the next keyframe. We're going to need different techniques for rotation, which we need a lot. I mentioned turning wheels of a car, for example, right? And anything that's going to roll is going to need rotation. So we're going to come back to that. Anybody have any questions so far about shape tweening? I want to do something different using the same logic. One thing I want to break out of is seeing tweens as just 2 keyframes. So I want to try something a little bit more elaborate, right? And again, if you follow with me step by step, I think I'm going to probably end on this, right? So let's get one. Let's end well. Can everybody open a new document? Hey, by the way, guys, you don't really have to save these. So if your computer slows down, you could go back to ones you don't want and close them. I'm going to say, no, I don't need to save all of these. It's up to you. Your computer might be a little friendlier. Mine's happy today, so I'm just going to open a new document. Same width, height, same frame rate. All right. I know people are anxious to do more exciting shapes and get to actual drawing, but we have a little more of this to go. Could you put a rectangle on the left? Now, In frame 40, so it's going to take just a little longer than the last one. I want you to place a blank keyframe. So again, right click or control click. And I want you to put another rectangle very similar on the right. Now, that's not interesting, right? So if you turned on the shape tweening now, so remember, you got on the left, you got it, the left keyframe has a left side object. The keyframe on the right, I suggested frame 40, has a right side object, but they're about the same. I want you to go in the middle and turn on your shape tween. So there's no surprise that it does move, and it would change color if we had bothered, but the shape looks just about the same. What I want to do is put a new shape in the middle. Okay, why do I want to do that? I'm trying to point out what's great about tweening. It's called live. It's live tweening. Every time you make a change, the tween zone changes. Yes? No? All right. So what you got is an object that's traveling across stage in about 40 frames. All right. The way you would add something in the middle is you have to put your own blank keyframe in the middle and draw a new shape there. So this is what we're going to do. I want you to go to about frame 20, right in the middle of the tween, on the layer, right? Because there might have been 10 layers now. You got to make sure you're clear about layers. Let's click in here, control click, and insert blank keyframe. Now, temporarily, we broke it. The left has little dashes and the right has little dashes. That means broken tween because there's a missing space in the middle. I'm going to switch to a different shape and I'd like you to do the same. I'm getting my oval, and to make it more fun, I'm going to switch colors. And I'm going to put it somewhere else. I got something on the left. I got something on the right. So what's going to happen is that left side object is going to head this way diagonally, turning green, changing shape. Once it arrives here, it's going to descend, heading over to frame 40. It's going to start turning its original color and back to the rectangle. Did it work? So, guys, we're going to wrap it up soon. Would you like me to do that one more time? Okay, let me do that one more time. I'm going to do it on a new document. So if you had a hard time with it, you're doing great, by the way, really. You know, the first steps always feel a little weird, a couple of weeks. Judging by the homework, not as weird as I would have expected. All right, file menu, new. Same stuff. We want a rectangle on the left for this demonstration, this exercise. The first thing to remember is you can't draw here or here or here or here unless you make a blank keyframe. So we're going a little less than 2 seconds out in frame 40. And insert your blank keyframe or you can't draw. You know, by the way, if I forgot that, it won't even let me bring the playhead over right now. Anyway, so I'm making my blank keyframe. It's currently highlighted and everything. I'm going to draw the same shape on the right. I want to turn the tween on after that because I got a shape on the left, I got a shape on the right, but I don't have the tween. So I'm going to click in between, control click or right click. And we're talking about shape tween only today. And you want to make sure your object's moving. It would have been fine if it was changing color, but right now I just want it to move. What we're talking about is changing our mind, really, about the middle of the tween. How do you change your mind? And there's more than one way, by the way, right? This way is we're adding a whole new object in the middle. So you got to bring your playhead to the middle. You have to make a keyframe there because all the drawings exist in time, blank keyframe. And you temporarily broke it. No big deal. Make sure you're on that new keyframe in the middle. If anyone got the basic shape tweening but missed the last exercise, this is the part that you missed. Right? In the middle of the working tween, we just added a blank keyframe to draw. I'm going to stick with the oval. I got rectangles, remember? So I'm switching colors, I'm switching shapes. And I'm going to put it up here just because I like the way that looked. By the way, if you turn on your onion skinning, you could drag both brackets out to see what the path is. Right? Frame 1 started way over there. It's now going to be traveling all the way up to here. And then it's traveling all the way down. You don't need that feature on unless it helps you understand what's happening. We're working on the middle keyframe, so it's particularly interesting looking onion skin. I'm going to turn mine off. So you play it. All right. I have to go over one thing about making GIFs because I promised that I would earlier today, and it's become more important anyway, so I do want to do that. But before I leave shape tweening, everything you learned today is still relevant. In other words, you could go ahead and move any of these at will. You could change their color. And everything still works. The tween just updates. Before I move on, though, does anyone have a question for me? We'll do a little more of this next week.
I wanted to ask how we would use this application later.
You know, that's a really good question. I want to show you one example, right? You know, it's like I have made someone smile with a shape tween, but I got to tell you, I'm not sure it was worth it. Again, for people who know a lot about anchor points, it took me really making sure the smile was made of 2 anchors. Shape tweens get confused when there's too many anchor points, too much complexity. But there's some simple things that I do with it which are really rather nice. I'm going to show you a trick that I've done that's geometric, but I've used it for some projects. And please don't join me on this one. I don't really have time to troubleshoot it. Here is a big rectangle the size of the stage. 24 frames later, I'm inserting a blank keyframe. You know, to tell you the truth, I want the same shape over there. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to F6. Remember F6? Copies the last keyframe. So what I've got here are 2 identical keyframes. Why would I ever do that? This is why. I want to take the second one and do just a simple move with my black arrow. So I'm going over the second one. I only got 2 to choose from. Now, when I turn on my shape tween, it should be able to understand that very simple request I'm making. Oh, that's a pretty interesting look. You know, and again, I'm going to tease everybody. Please don't be mad at me because I don't have time to go over this just now. You know, we've got a lot of time over the semester. Oops. 1 second there. I'm actually copying it. And I am going to reverse one of them. So now what I've got is this. Now, in terms of his question, like what use is this? You know what, really, if you're all about telling character animation, you might not use this feature very often. But if you're doing motion graphics, it's incredibly useful because we're always doing cool stuff with shapes and color and movement that often is not objects, they're just shapes. You know, next time you're watching an ad that isn't live action, see what they're actually doing. Are there any shapes moving around? So shape tweening is actually really helpful. We'll see if we come up with better ideas along the way, right? I want to go over the GIF thing. So guys, can you watch something? You know, I'm going to go to the last one that I had, this one. Let me just move stuff over for myself. There are 2 ways that we've created backgrounds together. Last week, we did this. we just simply went over here where it says stage, and we chose a background color. So that's by far the easiest way to choose a background color. And I could change that as often as I want, which is pretty cool, I'll admit. But earlier today, we made a background by making a layer for it. I really hope people remember a lot of this layer stuff because we're going to use it a lot and I'll try to be helpful. But my bottom layer here would have hidden the other kind of background. It's artwork that I drew myself. So this is two shapes that I made myself. This one here, sorry, this one here is an automatic background. I want to tell you why I bring it up. One, the automatic background is fine, but it isn't going to let me do anything elaborate. It's one big flat color. Thing is, when you make a GIF, there's a little checkbox that hides this kind of background, this kind. That's the one that I forgot whose homework it was. One of your homeworks, I was like, oh, you probably, there a little checkerboard showed up because you had transparency turned on. The worm animation would not care, right? Because this stuff can't be hidden unless you delete it, right? This one, sorry, oh my gosh. This one here, this kind of background, you have to be aware of when you make the GIF. I'm gonna make a GIF right now. I know you guys are really good at this. You don't really have to join me. I just want to point out that one difference. File menu, export, export animated GIF. Let's give that a second. It's taking its time. This. If I turn this on, the background disappears. And the only reason people ever do that, as I said, is they want to bring it into another program. So they want this to be transparent, or they're putting it on a website that has a color, yeah, mostly those two reasons. In my class, you're usually not going to check that. So this way, if you use the background feature, you're all right. Other than that, it's just about whether you loop or not. Right? And then you could go ahead and save that animation. And I'm just going to call it shape. I'm saving it to the desktop. All right, I need to wrap this up. We're just about to go over time. I want to just show you something kind of quickly. I left a big mess on the desktop, right? I should be making folders with everybody, but I have not done that. I'm going to show you something quicker on my desktop. I use this list view here because I could sort by date. So here's all the new stuff. So today we made a GIF. I just made a GIF. We made a SWF, SWF. That one I would have to double click to open. There's the worm FLA. This is a recover file. I don't know why that happened at all. So I'm just going to say that one of the things about what we're doing together, hang on a second there. I got lost. There we go. I'm going to turn off my screen sharing for a minute. Okay. You know, you're using Animate to make all kinds of output files. You know, the FLA is just for you. No one else is going to actually get it or see it. You know, it depends what you're doing it for. If you're doing it for a movie, we're going to have to make video out of it, which we haven't done yet. It's very easy. For the web, and there's no sound, you'll make a GIF. The SWFs we're not going to use very much, just to preview sometimes in class. So I don't want to get... Minglang, do you have a question for me? No?
No.
No? Okay. So guys, listen, I want to just repeat a couple things before I let you go. It's 12:40. I already took attendance. If anyone needs to leave right away, you just go. You got to be exhausted. You might have to go to work or a class. I personally hope you're doing something gentle. Netflix binging. I don't know. Having a beer. So next week, I'm hoping that the computers arrive for those of you who are waiting for computers. I'm also hoping to hear from anybody who still needs the Adobe free account to work, that you had more success. You do have to look at the handout and the handouts it's attached to. The remote, the Adobe steps. If any of you try remote access for reasons of your own, I want to hear how it went. There's a good chance we're all going to have to do that after September 30th. So if anyone starts early, I want to hear what you've got. The homework is due tonight. If you give it to me late, I'm still open-minded at this point. All right, don't make a habit of it because I give up. One of you guys did the homework. It wasn't good enough for them. They asked me for an extension for a few days. And I granted it just because I like their attitude. But in the long run, that isn't going to be too helpful because I give a homework just about every week and they get bigger. Folks, forgive me, but I want you to become as excellent as possible. Get a real taste of this. So I'm not really going to turn it into animation light. Not really. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I have a question for the home next week. I mean, the next 2 weeks. We're doing tweening for the homework.
Yeah. So, your teacher was remiss. I'm going to go over it. It is all on the handout, but if anyone wants to see, I'm going to actually go over it real quickly. It's pretty easy. It's very similar to the first homework. Here we are. Are you all seeing my screen? All right. So it says here that I want a 3-layer animation, right? So I hope you all caught layers. It is going to be on the video, which should go up later today. 3 layers. Now, if you want to do more, I'm okay with that. More is always okay. Less is never okay. All right. At least 1 layer should have frame by frame. We did a lot of frame by frame. All last week, and today we did a worm moving, and we watched Blackman's birds and the guy with the saw. We got a lot of exposure to that kind of thinking. So at least 1 layer. At least 1 layer should use shape tweening. What you do with it, it's kind of up to you. Frankly, if the sun's moving across the sky, shape tweening is the easiest way to do it probably. You just don't change the shape. Change the color and location. So, you want the sky to stay still and just change color. You could also do that with shape tweening. Just make a big box, copy it down the timeline. Give it a new color. There's a lot you could do with it. See what you can come up with. So I got 1 layer with frame by frame at least, 1 layer shape tweening at least. What about the 3rd layer? Whatever you want. Now, there's no topic this week. Soon there will be. So again, it's the same logic, beginning, middle, end. Some of you guys told interesting, super brief stories. 2 airplanes fell in love. And other really cool stuff. One of you guys did the abstraction with all the little circles, which was a rather abstract thing, but very fun. But they all both shared that. The artist meant it. They weren't winging it. And there was a beginning to the story. What's going to happen? Middle, and it ended somewhere. So it's the same kind of logic, just 3 layers, and please include shape tweening. Thanks for asking, Zechariah. Anybody else have any questions for me? I'm pretty open right now. No? So, hey Nassim, how you doing over there? Hey, did you take MMP100 with me? No? You have a look-alike somewhere? He was brilliant, so I guess I'm expecting now, sorry. Anyway, so listen, guys, this is what I'd like to say. Have fun with this. I know it's a lot of work, but the more fluent you get, the more fun that it is. So it really is about paying your dues so that you could fly, and that's where we're at right now. Some of you are flying already. I'm not kidding. Tiffany's also seen first week work, and I do think that was a higher level. I don't know why. But I think it was. So we'll see what happens next week. Guys, everybody, have a nice weekend. Not next week. Didn't I say the school's closed next Friday, right?
Next 2
Yeah,
weeks.
2 weeks from now.
Oh, wow. Listen, so people watching the YouTube video, don't come next week. Let me just stop the video for a second here.
Professor, I already have to go now, and I'll see you next 2
You
weeks.
get going. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Guys, you have plenty of time for the homework.
Have a good.
I'll check
have
my
a good-
email over the gap. If anyone has a technical issue or something they'd like to talk to me about after class, I'm going to treat this as some office time right now.